It is Monday night in East Lansing, Michigan. Welcome once again, SpartanMag.com. Spartan Mag Live, the call-in show. It's open mic night. Give us a call. You got the number right there. And we'll talk some Michigan State sports. Michigan State 29-20 over Northwestern here at the stadium on Saturday. Right now it's Monday. That's a photo from Saturday. Still a good day for Michigan State fans going back 2 days. Big surprise over the number 8 ranked Northwestern Wildcats. Michigan State in basketball, an 80-70 winner against Notre Dame on Saturday night. Tuesday night, Michigan State at Duke. Number 8 ranked Michigan State Spartans. Number 6 ranked Duke Blue Devils. 3 times in about 20 months. Those two teams. It's going to be amazing if Michigan State can beat Duke on Tuesday. An amazing run of 3 or 4 days for Michigan State fans. You deserve it. Give us a call. We will talk about Michigan State sports. Also, we've got some questions we can tackle here. Mailbag style. Had about 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 questions over at the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com. We will be tackling those questions. In the meantime, waiting for a couple of guests. We might have Nils calling in. I'm not sure. Either way, a lot to talk about. First of all, football. Rocky Lombardi got the start. Not bad. Had the 1 interception. We'll talk about that 1 interception. I'm still looking into that interception, how big of a mistake it was. Not sure it was a huge mistake. We've talked about this before in the post-game VCast at SpartanMag.com. Patty Fisher, very wily veteran there at inside linebacker with a hold on Jaden Reed. 3rd down pass. Lombardi's throwing to the window, expecting him to cross behind the linebacker. Gets held, throws it where the receiver is going. Receiver doesn't get there because he's held. Could have been a flag. Wily play by Fisher. Interception. Not sure that was a bad read or a bad throw on that one, but certainly a lot of good plays by Lombardi, a lot of great plays by the offensive line. Hayward, running back, playing better than we've seen him play. Basically in at least 2 years for Hayward. Excellent job for him. By the way, SpartanMag.com, it is the church of what's happening now for Michigan State sports. The Underground Bunker message board is where all the Spartan fans go online. It's the #1 web community for Michigan State fans. And right now, we've got a special. If you subscribe now, get over there, click at the red thing at the top at SpartanMag.com. $75 for a year subscription. That's 25% off. And you get a $75 Nike gift card. Basically, you can subscribe for free. You get the $75 back in Nike goods. Try it. We think you'll like it. Hey, let's go to question number 1 from Mason County. This is Z from Mason County, Michigan. He's got a basketball question. He says, does Marcus Bingham Jr. break into the starting lineup? And if so, if he does, when would you guess that would be? I would not be shocked if he starts tomorrow at Duke. Bingham, he had, 15, 16, 20 starts last year, something like that. Thomas Kithier started in the first 2 games. Kithier doing okay, but Bingham seems to be coming along a little more rapidly here of late. He's added some good weight. He's moving well on defense. Help side defense, blocking shots, and not overextending himself to block shots. What is he, 6'10", 6'11"? Plays at least 6'11". Wingspan up to 7'2", 7'1", 7'3", something like that. But he's moving his feet well and staying down, playing within himself. On offense, he's developing. Turnaround jumper in both games. Nice patient little hook shot once. Last year, most of his shots, or many of his shots, came from three-point range. Has not attempted that yet this year. Has a decent release out there, but not good enough to be better than a 20% shooter out there at this point. He can do other things elsewhere. He's got other teammates that can take those shots. No reason for him to hunt that shot. That could still come later in his career, Izzo says. But as of right now, I like the way Bingham's playing. Against Notre Dame, Marcus Bingham played 15 minutes. Malik Hall played 18 minutes. Joey Hauser played 23. But most importantly, at that center position, Bingham played 15. Kithier played 15. So they're both even though Kithier's getting the start. But could Bingham be the guy that starts in this game? Interesting question. Could he play better defense against Hurt? Matthew Hurt is the 5-man for Duke, 6'9", 6'10", good three-point shooter. Last year, Matthew Hurt against Michigan State. Let's see what Hurt. I've got. Hurt was 5 of 11 against Coppin State, 2 out of 5 from three-point range. Last year against Michigan State, 10 points. Matthew Hurt, 6'9". They list him at 6'9". Matthew Hurt was a big-time recruit, number 9 player in the country by Rivals.com. Was a McDonald's All-American, 2 out of 3 from three-point range against Michigan State last year. I think Michigan State might do well to get Bingham on him, a taller, longer guy to take away Matthew Hurt's three-point shot. Bingham, I think, is responsible enough on defense to get out and be a deterrent against a stretch 5, which is basically what Hurt is, a pick and pop 5. Whereas Bingham can also move his feet well enough that he's not going to overextend himself and give up a drive. Not that Hurt is a big shot fake and drive guy. But I think Bingham might be the guy to start against Hurt tomorrow. You're asking when do I think he'll start? I think as early as Tuesday of this week. I'm going to go over to the YouTube channel right now and see what we're doing over there with the chat area. We've already had an interesting start to the show today. Some of that stuff I'll edit out, because unless you guys think it's funny. All right. Going back to the mailbag. Now, you can post over there at the Red Cedar chat area. It's not the Red Cedar chat area. Red Cedar's got my next question. In the chat area, give us some questions over there. I'll be tackling those as I come to them. A gentleman by the name of Red Cedar asks, who primarily guards Jalen Johnson tomorrow night? Jalen Johnson, freshman stretch 4 for the Duke Blue Devils, 19 points, 19 rebounds in the opener against Coppin State. Something we've talked about. I wrote a little blurb over at the Final Forum message board at SpartanMag.com, put it on the front at SpartanMag.com. 2 questions I have for this game. One of them is who guards Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson was 8 out of 8 from the field against Coppin State. Showed the ability to put the ball on the deck, drive, score, had a nice little fadeaway baseline jumper, hit a three-pointer, busy on the glass, 19 rebounds, also had offensive rebounds, had at least one putback, made it look easy a couple of times. But Coppin State really had very little rim protection, very little in terms of deterrence in the paint. Michigan State has more rim protectors. Jalen Johnson with a great debut game for Duke, no question about that. It will come a little more difficult against Michigan State. Who guards him initially? He's a stretch 4, so your 4 guards him. That's Joey Hauser. And Joey Hauser, Izzo loves Hauser's basketball IQ, loves his shooting ability, even though we've not seen Joey Hauser drain the three-pointer yet. That's coming. Talking about a 40+% guy from three-point range last year or 2 years ago at Marquette. Good shooter, good passer, willing rebounder. Has really impressed this year so far with his rebounding. What do you have, 10 or 11 rebounds at halftime against Notre Dame? Ended up with 15 boards, 14, something like that. Had 4 rebounds in the first minute and a half. I'm not sure I've ever seen that. So now can Hauser play defense against a true triple threat stretch 4? You know Hauser's mind and heart is in the right place. He's got some size. Now we're going to see his defense. And it's good we're going to see it, because need to see early whether power forward defense is a problem for Michigan State. I don't suspect it will be. Hauser should be okay. Malik Hall will come off the bench, and Malik Hall could be a plus defender as a 4. 6'7", he's added some muscle. Moves well laterally. Moves well enough that they think he could play defense against some small forwards. Can do switches on ball screens, can switch onto a guard. They're confident with that. You know, Xavier Tillman used to do that. Kenny Goins used to do that. Can Malik Hall begin to do that? I think so. Can he begin to do it right now? Maybe so. Switch onto a guard. They're working toward that. So if Hauser has some trouble, you've got Malik Hall. So you continue to start Joey Hauser at the 4, so no question he will be guarding Johnson, I would think. Could you put Bingham on Johnson and put Hauser on Hurt? Possibly. there will be some of that anyway if there's switches going on. So I like Michigan State's ability, the opportunity to test that part of the game. The other part of the game is, like Drippy just said, Michigan State's ball pressure. I posted two things at the Underground Bunker, or at the Final Four message board, that I think are questions for Michigan State, maybe a concern. Guarding a 4, maybe not a concern. Matching up with Jalen Johnson, always a concern, no matter what team you are. But an opportunity for Michigan State to test Hauser there, to get more from Hall there, and for Michigan State to find out what they've got there. You know, I thought one of the problems that they had 3 or 4 years ago, that year when they lost to Middle Tennessee State in the first round of the NCAA tournament in St. Louis, you know, that team won a lot of games, but I wasn't sure they ever had somebody that could guard a stretch 4. Kenny Goins, in and out, was still gaining trust at that time in his career and was injured in that game. You know, they had the one dude that could shoot three-pointers really great, but he wasn't the guy that hurt them that game for Middle Tennessee State. It wasn't the guard. It was the stretch 4, and I forget his name, but in the VCast the night before the game, Conan Dyke and I talked about that guy being a potential problem. He wasn't their star, but it could be a mismatch situation. You know, Michigan State had Deontay Davis, and I thought he had maybe come along enough guarding stretch 4s, but the Big Ten that year did not have many quality stretch 4s. Michigan had Nick Irvin that year. Nobody else could really attempt to give Michigan State problems at that position. Went through the whole season. Nobody really matched up and gave Michigan State and went at that potential weakness. Then that game started, and the potential weakness, the dude from Middle Tennessee State scored 15, 16 points in the first half. The big lead, you guys know what happened. Michigan State was trying different power forwards in that game. Marvin, what's his name, the dude that transferred to St. John's? The guy played so many minutes the week before, fouled out against Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. Then in that game, played 10 minutes. They took him out, not sure why. The transfer, the walk-on from Wyoming. I forget these people's names after they move on. The walk-on from Wyoming, he tried it. I think he might have gotten hurt. It was a revolving door. They didn't have anyone that could guard a 4. And it wasn't until March Madness that it was like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? We don't have like a set guy. You're guarding the stretch 4. And it bit him in that game against Middle Tennessee State, and it was no fluke. Yeah, if they play 5 times, Michigan State wins 4. Middle Tennessee State deserved that one. My point is, game number 3, Michigan State will get a chance to guard a legit stretch 4, Jalen Johnson. Joey Hauser, go. 3-4 minutes. Malik Hall, go. See how it looks? Good test. Good chance to see what you've got. Good chance to grow. The other thing in that game, Michigan State, point guard position. Rocket Watts, Foster Loyer. Loyer struggled a little bit against Notre Dame defensively. Rocket Watts progressed a little bit more. He's been nursing a knee injury and so forth. But Rocket Watts, can he facilitate? Can he get the offense into its initial pass, whether it be to the wing, to the foul line area, whatever it be? If and when Duke plays man-to-man, it's going to be pressure man-to-man. Duke really ramps up the pressure against Michigan State. They play pressure defense against a lot of teams, but I swear they ramp it up more against Michigan State. Last year in the Breslin Center, a lot of you might remember there was a play where Foster Loyer was in the game, and it was just a 3-point field goal, but it was kind of emblematic of some of the things that were going on that night. But it was pressure defense from Trey Jones, who's no longer at Duke. Michigan State was trying to execute a handoff, kind of a weave type situation over to the left wing. Trey Jones knows the weave is coming, gets his hand in there, knocks it away, layup. Foster Loyer flailing back on defense, gets called for a phantom block foul. I'm not sure it should have been a foul, but the point is, pressure defense changed the geometry of the offense, makes it uncomfortable for you, turns the receiver into, puts him in positions of the court where he's not comfortable. So you're operating your offense from different points. Geometry's off. You're farther away. It builds on itself and builds on itself. And that happened, I remember 15 years ago, the one time when Michigan State came in. I think when Duke came into Breslin Center, Michigan State wore the silver jerseys. Different teams, same coaches. Purdue had just beaten Duke in the Great Alaska Shootout, so Duke came in a foul mood, and Sean Dockery was a guard who had not done a whole lot to that point in his career. Dockery looked like a different player at the outset of that game. Pressure defense helped upset Michigan State's rhythm in the backcourt. That's how Duke gets a lot of things done. And when Krzyzewski really, really wants a game, he'll ramp up that defense. Jordan Goldwire, good defensive player for Duke. Guard, very good defensive player. He's like a defensive specialist type of guy. He'll be matching up with Michigan State's point guard, I would imagine, and making it difficult for him. Wendell Moore on the wing. He's got some length to him. He'll be cranked up. I don't know if Joey Baker will be starting again. He played 15 minutes, played a little bit against Michigan State last year. But DJ Stewart, true freshman for Duke out of Chicago. 24 points in his first game against Coppin State. Came off the bench. Played a lot of minutes. Maybe they start Stewart. Maybe they start Baker. I'm not sure. Either way, Michigan State will be seeing a lot of pressure from that position. Here's my point. Can Foster Loyer handle that pressure and get into the offense? Duke wants to find out. Can he throw that initial pass? Will there be turnovers off that initial pass? Foster Loyer, great job shooting the ball against Eastern Michigan in game number 1. Struggled a little bit at times against Notre Dame. Notre Dame sees him on the scouting report. Get out on that guy. Got out on him. Took his shot away, which is okay. He can operate that. Duke will get out on him as well, but they'll also make life difficult in terms of getting into the offense, making passes. Foster Loyer, good shooter, Mr. Basketball. I think he was Mr. Basketball. Legendary scoring performances at Breslin Center in high school, for Clarkston High School. However, as a passer, I'm not sure, this first 2 years, not a great passer. So now Duke's going to be looking at all that film. They're going to want him to prove something there. Rocket Watts, I wouldn't be surprised if Rocket Watts plays more minutes at the lead guard than Foster Loyer does. Loyer might start, I'm not sure. Rocket Watts, always been a score-first type of guy. A lot of talent, a lot of skill. Now, can he play quarterback with those blitzes coming at him? That's what we're going to learn about Michigan State. They've got a little question there in terms of the facilitator, in terms of the facilitation. They know who the facilitators are supposed to be. What kind of facilitating are they going to get out of Loyer and Rocket Watts against some real pressure defense? That's my second big question. When you have a team strength like Jordan Goldwire and the way Duke can play pressure defense in the backcourt, when you have a strength matching up against a question mark, that's where you can get some disproportionate results. Is Michigan State's point guard play facilitation against pressure defense, is that a weakness? I'm not ready to say it's a weakness yet. We'll find out more on Tuesday night. If it's a weakness, then you have strength versus weakness, disproportionate results. The good thing for Michigan State is that the Cameron Crazies won't be there to snowball the situation. Krzyzewski said after the Coppin State game, he said, hey, I got to tell you, it's different without the fans. Of course it's different. But there were times when he felt like the blowout should have been on and they didn't have that extra dose of energy. Might have also helped keep Eastern Michigan from getting blown out by 35, that the Izzone wasn't there. Might have helped Notre Dame creep back into it, not really into the game competitively, but to go from down 20 or 22, whatever it was, creep back in, lose by 10. That lack of home crowd to really demoralize the opponent. Michigan State doesn't have to worry about that on Tuesday night, and that's going to help Michigan State. Let's go over here to the Red Cedar. I keep calling the Red Cedar. Over to the chat area. It's because I got a question from a guy named Red Cedar earlier. Threw me off, among other things. Marvin Clark, thanks, Hayden Fisher. All right, Hayden Fisher checked in first, as a matter of fact. Brad Fashenko, Mr. Bone Man, and MM Drippy, and Big Will. That's our starting five. Hayden Fisher, Brad Fashenko, Mr. Bone Man, MM Drippy, and Big Will in the middle. The starting five tonight. Great to hear from you guys. As a matter of fact, I think I've got a little bit of a lighting situation. You guys don't care about that. I'd like to go over there and change a couple of things, but I'm not going to worry about it. So if we're trailing here, sorry, we'll get it better next time. All right, Mr. Bowman says, hello from snowy Harper Woods. Snowing in Harper Woods tonight, huh? Harper Woods. You a Bishop Gallagher guy? A little buzz in the background. Take that away. No buzz anymore, probably. Mr. Bowman, it was a nice win. Not sure which win you're talking about, Mr. Bowman. MM Drippy says, I'm not a very optimistic Spartan fan, especially against Duke, but I think we definitely have a chance to win this game. I'm not saying we will win, but it should be a very tight game. MM Drippy, very cautiously optimistic. Cautiously optimistic. If you watched Michigan State against Notre Dame and watched Duke against Coppin State, I think you would think that Michigan State's the better team, and you should be more than cautiously optimistic. However, that's just one game for Hayden Vischer with a super chat.
Call from
Don Strait.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
All right, Don Strait, you're on hold for a moment.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. Don from DeWitt, actually.
Don from DeWitt. All right, thanks. Sorry, I can edit that out. We don't need to have your last name in there. I'll go back and edit that out. But Hayden Vischer with a personal sponsorship. Hayden, I really appreciate that. I'm trying to hit a noise thing. Let me know if you heard the DJ air horn. That's what we're trying. Tried that last time also. I'm not sure anyone really heard it. But I can't remember. Okay, so Duke, this is the point I want to make about Duke. They did not play well against Coppin State. But Michigan State against Eastern Michigan, you saw Joey Hauser with 2 or 3 kind of difficult turnovers that are not him. You saw Joshua Langford, his first time back in 2 years, understandably making some mistakes. Point is, Michigan State, just like all these other teams, didn't have exhibition games, did not have Midnight Madness, did not have a green-white game. It was their first time on stage, so to speak, in Michigan State. Although they took care of Eastern Michigan, they were not themselves. They were much better in game number 2 against Notre Dame. Notre Dame came in, their first game, started pretty well against Michigan State, couldn't sustain it. Not sure what kind of errors were taking place there that Mike Bray would like to correct. First time out for Notre Dame. Duke, first time out against Coppin State, same thing. So Duke was not good in game number 1. I don't know if that's the real Duke for the long term. I would expect them to improve a lot between game 1 and game 2. That's to your point about being cautiously optimistic. So it's a mixed bag there. Michigan State was better against Notre Dame than Duke was against Coppin State. If you look at those 2 items, Michigan State shouldn't have a problem, but Duke's going to be better than that in game number 2. Don Strait, there's your last name again. Sorry about that. Don from DeWitt. How you doing, my man? Welcome to SpartanMag Live. What's on your mind?
Doing great, Jim. Great stuff on the underground bunker and all that.
Great to have you.
I'm not sure I'm with you.
Yeah, you're with me. You're gonna have to turn down the volume on your laptop and you talk to me. We got a little bit of a delay there. So yeah, you're with us.
Yeah, I got that zeroed out. Just got the phone on.
All right. Yeah, you're with us. We appreciate you being a Spartan Mag subscriber. Thanks for your posts over there at SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker message board. You are an astute follower of Michigan State sports. Great, glad to have you tonight on Spartan Mag Live. Open mic night. The mic is yours. What's going on, Don?
Well, first of all, I just want to comment on the defense played the other night against Notre Dame. It looked very good very early here. Comment on that if you would. And as far as the Spartan effort against Northwestern, what couple things surprised you most about that? And finally, how do I sponsor?
And what? How do you what?
How do I sponsor? How do I, chip in?
Thanks for asking. The tip jar. You're looking for the tip jar. Appreciate it, man. There should be like a little dollar
sign.
Yeah,
where is that?
There should be a little $sign below the chat area. See the chat area where it says "say something" and down to the bottom there.
Okay, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, right
There
there.
it is.
But hold on a second. Thanks for asking.
Can
But-
do.
All right, I appreciate that. Well, stay on the line for a second because let's have a little conversation. Michigan State's defense, basketball. We knew Rocket Watts could play defense. We knew Gabe Brown can play defense, and he's jacked it up even more. He's a year older. He's a year stronger. Joshua Langford, I like the way from the outset of the Eastern Michigan game. Missed a shot early, made some others later, but the way he moved, the way he ran. One time he jumped up, elevated really well to get a rebound. I'm like, man, horsepower-wise, he looks like he's back. So if he's got that horsepower, he should be able to play
I
defense.
agree so much with that.
So he's got
That looks so good. That is so awesome.
I was, when he was a freshman, remember he had hamstring problems and he was running up and down the court and kind of goose stepping it a little bit and never became limber that whole season. And he's always been a little bit of a slow healer. Now coming off the, nearly retiring, nearly a career-ending injury, not playing for 2 years. The last thing I expected from Josh Langford was to look as athletic as he's ever been, as we've ever seen him at Michigan State. Now, he slipped a little bit midway through that game and tweaked something, and you could tell he was a little bit worried about it, but apparently he was okay. I loved some of the things he did in the medium range, and a couple times the long-range shot looked real sweet. But point is, he's got the athleticism and the experience to be a plus defender. Izzo considered him one of their best defenders a couple of years ago. He could easily get back to that real soon, if not against Duke. So you got Brown, you've got him, you got Aaron Henry doing some good things, and Aaron Henry's got some strength. The good thing about the versatility of Michigan State on defense, the flexibility on defense, is their ability to switch, which negates the troublesome nature of ball screens or even pin downs or away screens. If you have guys that can switch seamlessly, so all of a sudden Aaron Henry can switch and take a power forward for the rest of a possession without it being a huge problem, or Malik Hall can go from a 4 to guarding a 3, or Xavier Tillman back in the old days when he would switch onto a point guard. I mean, that just takes you to a next level when you can do that. Michigan State's got some pieces to do that on the switches, got some length on the perimeter. They've got some experience out there, athleticism, quickness, and strength, all those things on the perimeter. Izzo feels, and he repeated it again today during the press conference, he believes this can be one of his best defensive teams. I didn't necessarily believe that until I started to see what was going on down in the front court. Marcus Bingham, a little stronger, moving well, smarter, the way he's just a rim protector. That is the part that can help them on defense. Put a very good 5 on the court, a very good 5 individually can create a great 5 collectively. Now, maybe not when Lawyer's on the court, maybe not when Hauser's on the court. We'll have to wait and see. But when they're out there with Malik Hall and Bingham and any of those, like Rocket Watts and Brown and Aaron Henry or Langford in there, those 5 on defense can be special. So, some of it has to be ironed out, what happens when Lawyer's on the court and some others. But from a base, it's excellent. But one of the things you have to be able to do is guard a mismatch 4, and that goes all the way back to the late 1990s. You have to have somebody that can guard a mismatch 4. We used to call them a mismatch 4. The term in the last 10, 15 years has been a stretch 4. Okay, call it a stretch 4. Duke's got a good one. It's going to test Michigan State in that area tomorrow. If Michigan State passes that test, they've got even more credit going forward. As far as what surprised me most in that Northwestern game, running the ball. Michigan State they'd run for 40 and 70 yards in 3 of their 4 games. Ran it a little bit against Michigan. Northwestern held Wisconsin to about 160 yards rushing. Held Wisconsin to 160. Wisconsin popped off a few gainers, but later in the game, Wisconsin was not able to do much. Iowa flat out didn't even try to run the ball against Northwestern. I thought that was unbelievable. Iowa only attempted 17 tailback runs and 51 passes. If Kirk Ferentz had that game to play over again, they would have saddled up the run and gone after that a little bit harder. I think that was a big mistake for Iowa. I thought it was a mistake beforehand. I watched a lot of Northwestern tape. I was impressed by their defensive front 7. I'm like, okay, I can see why Iowa tried to go that route, but now I'm back to second-guessing that again. Iowa should not have done that. They should have saddled up the run like Michigan State did. They were up 17-0 on Northwestern and went away from the run. That was not good for Iowa. So, hitting the tip jar, appreciate that. Hayden Vischer earlier. I finally got a bell. You guys have been ripping on me the last couple weeks for not having a tip jar bell. Appreciate that for the personal sponsorship. I was also hitting that, this thing. It's supposed to be a DJ horn. Not sure if that worked or not, but hopefully it did. All right, let's go over here to the chat area for some questions. Who we got? All right, let's see here. I've got to tell somebody what phone number it is. Nothing like live internet radio, is there? Anyway, let's look at the questions here. Mr. Bone Man from Snowy Harper Woods. A little buzz in the background. We've already been through this. Big Wheel says, I hope they're able to land some linebackers. They need some badly. Have you heard anything? Not heard anything about, the linebacker situation. They went after Chief Borders. They're still after the linebacker that's committed to Penn State. That one could come down a little bit later towards signing day, but signing day is coming up in just a couple of weeks, right? That's going to be interesting to see if Reed... there's a little bit of movement with Bryce Steele from Alexandria, Virginia, who was a South Carolina commitment. Michigan State went after him, but looks like that one might be trending elsewhere. But Jalen Reed from Detroit King, kind of a hybrid linebacker type from Detroit King, committed to Penn State. Michigan State's still after him. It'll be interesting to see if he goes in and signs with Penn State here in a couple of weeks. I suspect he will. That the transfer portal, something that could happen for Michigan State at the linebacker position, would not be surprised there. Drippy says, Bingham needs to start so we win the tip-off. All right. Angelo Gross enthusiast says, I've heard a lot of talk about transfers. Do you know of any names that Michigan State might go after? Perhaps Dwan Mathis. I wouldn't anticipate Dwan Mathis. I think he would be interested. He didn't look that good against Georgia, and he's had some trouble. God bless him. I hope he has gotten through all his health situations. That's a guy that committed to Iowa State, decommitted, committed to Michigan State, decommitted, committed to Ohio State, decommitted, signed with Georgia. Had some situations, didn't win the starting job. Now he's looking to move on. I thought he had a lot of talent. He still does, but did not look good for Georgia when surrounded by some pretty good talent there. Would they go after him and put him into the competition? Possibly so. Would he beat out Peyton Thorne and Rocky Lombardi? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure he's better than those two. And I know Rocky Lombardi's not great, but he did a solid job navigating things on Saturday, played winning football by not playing losing football. And when he had some guys open, he made it happen. The deep one to Jalen Naylor was nice. The slot fade to Jaden Reed to go up 17-0 was perfect. Sprinkling in the run game was very effective. He looked quicker live. I don't know if it looked that way on television, but watching live, that's the quickest we've seen Rocky Lombardi. And Michigan State, from a schematic standpoint, did more with the zone read option than they've done in the past. They were optioning the defensive ends quite often. Number 49 and number 99, good defensive ends. 99, Ernest Brown, quality defensive end. Michigan State sometimes left him unblocked to option him. Sometimes that's what you do with the great players. You don't try to block him, you leave him unblocked, and whatever he chooses, he's wrong if you're very good with your reads. Zone reads. And some of those zone reads Michigan State was doing, they were elongated. He was leaving it in that gut for a long time and pulling it out late, almost like that quarterback for Wake Forest last year, the other guy that transferred to Georgia. Almost like that. Not quite as methodical, but it looked better choreographed than it did against Indiana. Remember, Michigan State fumbled on a zone read option between Lombardi and Jordan Simmons on 3rd and short early in the game, down just outside the red zone. Fumbled it, recovered it, lost the 5, punted. But on that one, Lombardi left it in his gut, but Jordan Simmons didn't feel it. Let's see what we got here. I don't know about
Call
this
from.
No.
To accept, press 1.
No. So, yeah, we're not taking that call from Florence, Alabama. We do have his phone number, though. So maybe I'll call him back after the show. Drippy says 5-star linebacker just decommitted from Tennessee. I've not looked into that one. That's interesting. I mean, the portal's going to be interesting. Decommitments are going to be interesting. Gordon Tonona says, Comp, you were right when you said Coughlin could be worth 1.5, 2 wins this year. I don't remember saying that, but I'll take it. Angelo Gross Enthusiast says, Drippy, any chances? I don't know what he's talking about. Brad Fishenko says, defensive tackle just decommitted from Texas A&M. I wonder why that would be. Drippy says, okay, let's see if we've got any questions here. You guys are talking amongst themselves, which is wonderful. Greg Joliffe with an interesting comment. Drippy Basketball says, Duke's defensive pressure is going to give Foster fits. I think we win or lose because of Lawyer. Lawyer's going to have a tough test, and he's going to have to show some growth. J.J. Huddle says, we used to work together when I was at CDW. Talking to green balls. Talking amongst yourself, that's great. Dan Fernandez says, Comp, do you believe that this is potentially the best defensive team other than the Mateen era? Well, I mean, that's been thrown around here and there. I don't know. I'd have to wait and see on that. That's been thrown around. You know, in terms of defensive field goal percentage, they've had some good seasons. You know, even those teams with, like, Drew Namick at center. I know he wasn't, like, the main cog, but there were some good defensive teams back then. You know, I'm not just going to... I'd have to go back and research it, but the perimeter 3 or 4 could be special on defense. Could be special. As good as those Cleves teams were on defense, there were times when they played opponents that they couldn't stop. Remember A.J. Guyton? The last game Michigan State lost that year at Indiana. What did he score? 30+? Cleves couldn't stop him. Charlie Bell couldn't stop him. Sometimes you have those type of games. Let's go back over here to the mail. But yeah, Shaq Brown doing a good job coverage-wise. Those interceptions, I mean, making breaks on the ball, that so physical, that second interception. And what a key juncture of that game. When the young man from Northwestern was injured on the play, sounds like he's fine. But Shaq Brown playing hard, working hard, living hard, doing a great job. You know, Harlan Barnett said prior to the year that he thought Shakur Brown had a chance to take his game to the next level, and we are definitely seeing that from that kid from Georgia. Question number 4, Matt from Grand Rapids says, what are Michigan State's odds of making a bowl game this year? Ooh, that's a tricky question. That's a tricky question. Michigan State beats Northwestern. Everybody wants to talk about bowl games all of a sudden, and rightfully so. You're 2-3. I mean, you know, truthfully, in a regular type of season, Michigan State might be 3-1 in the non-conference. If you go 4-4 in the Big Ten, you're a 7-5 team. You should be in a bowl game. The equivalent of a 7-5 overall this year is 3-4. Same thing. So they're 2-3. Say you lose to Ohio State. If that game's played, then you're playing Penn State for a bowl game. If you win that game, do you deserve a bowl game? I say yes. Now, are we going to get a full allotment of bowl games? A lot of things going on right now. Are we going to get a Michigan State-Ohio State game? Ryan Day said earlier today, if I'm not mistaken, that if they can practice on Thursday, they intend to play. Which then you're getting into some shaky situations because Ohio State definitely wants to get games in so they can qualify for the Big Ten championship game without any kind of late waiver needed in order to have enough wins to qualify for the Big Ten championship game. They want to play because they want to get in the Big Ten championship game, win that game, get in the playoff. So are they stretching themselves too thin, overextending to make sure they come play this game, what they perceive to be a winnable game? I don't want to put words in their mouths. Maybe, I don't know. It's a dangerous situation there. Can they actually get ready for a Big Ten football game just practicing Thursday and Friday? They've not practiced in more than a week and a half. At that point, should a commissioner step in and say, wait a minute, we appreciate what you're trying to do? I don't know. From Michigan State's standpoint, I hope Michigan State plays. Because every time you get on the field, you get a chance to improve. And would they have a chance to beat Ohio State? I'm not going to say they wouldn't. You saw Ohio State against Indiana. Indiana was very explosive on offense. Ohio State, not great. Would Ohio State come out and make some mistakes? Justin Fields made mistakes against Indiana's secondary. Could he make mistakes against Michigan State's secondary? A few. But could Michigan State do enough to keep up in that game? Probably not. I think Michigan State could play defense well enough to maybe hold Indiana, to hold Ohio State if Ohio State's a little bit rusty. Maybe hold Ohio State under 31 points. But could Michigan State actually score 32? Doubt it, right? Doubt it. But Michigan State's pass defense, outstanding in this game in a lot of ways. Yeah, they gave up 210 yards passing, but there's like 43 pass attempts, 51 pass attempts. I don't know what it was. I do remember that Northwestern averaged only 4.8 yards per pass attempt. And if you average 4.8 yards per pass attempt for a season, you will lead the Big Ten in that category. So Northwestern remained dangerous through the air, but had to throw it 51 times to get 210 yards. Had a couple of chunks, but nothing major. And toward the end of the game, Northwestern punted or fumbled on each of their last 5 possessions. And I talked about this in the VCast, but it bears repeating. I mean, Michigan State on defense, the things they were doing with their coverages. You know, after the fumble, they forced them to go 3 and out, interception, 3 and out, fumble. And they did it with a variety of coverages. I mean, the Michigan State had just tied the game 20-20. Northwestern gets the ball back. This is impressive stuff. Bear with me on this. First down and 10, Michigan State runs straight cover 3. They throw a little pass out to the running back, gains 13 yards. Angelo Gross, nice tackle. Tackled great all day. Physical tackler, Angelo Gross. In that slot area, outstanding. True freshman. Gain of 3. Second and 7, they played cover 3 lock. So it looks like cover 3 at pre-snap, but Kalen Gervin, it was usually Kalen Gervin on the short side, would just lock up and play man-to-man, usually on number 81. So man-to-man lock on that one, and then 2/3 of cover 3. The other 2 deep are playing cover 3. So rather than deep thirds, zone, 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 it was deep 2/3, zone, zone, and then press man-to-man over there. And so lock up man-to-man here, zone everywhere else. But to the pre-snap quarterback, it looks like cover 3. And to the receivers, it might look like cover 3, and they might change their routes depending on what they see at pre-snap read. Michigan State did a real good job disguising that. That cover 3 lock, that 2/3 cover 3, that's what Hazelton and those guys did for the Seattle Seahawks for so long. Hazelton was a linebackers coach there. Took it to Kansas State, took it to Wyoming, and it's good stuff. DJ Durkin did it at the University of Florida. Did it real well when he had the number 1 defense in the country, or close to it. I think number 1 defense in the country. And then Harbaugh hired him, and then must have ruined him or something. But anyway, all right, so 3rd and 7. Then Michigan State played cover 4, and Michigan State confused him. Cover 4. Quarterback patting it, flush out of the pocket, keeps it, tackled, short of the first down, punt. We told you in the pre-snap read that Peyton Ramsey's a good quarterback, pretty good when he throws it, but he's a little bit late with his
Call from
Nils Deco.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Nils Deco from Houston, Texas. You hold right there, sir. I know you've got a lot of interesting thoughts. But when we talk about pass defense, and I mentioned in the pre-snap read that this quarterback, Ramsey, if the initial pass was not open, the initial read, he would pat the ball and hold it a little bit too long. Sometimes he would keep it locked on and lock on a receiver and still throw it and telegraph a little bit, sometimes interceptions. But a guy that stays locked on too long, that means he's not comfortable finding a second read. And on times when he did look for a second read, I noted in the pre-snap read he was inaccurate when he did that. So Michigan State changing pictures in the defensive secondary with their coverages. When he had to go to a second read, it wasn't good. And that's where a lot of those coverage sacks came in and some of those coverage pressures. Next time they had the ball on 3rd and 7, interception, Shaq Brown. This was the one when he knocked out that receiver. In all due respect to the receiver, a good, hard player. I think he's okay. I want to repeat, I think he's okay. That's what Fitzgerald said after the game. Everything looked good. I'm not trying to be disparaging about it at all. But anyway, 3rd and 7 on that one. Okay, so Michigan State had already shown some cover 3. They'd shown some cover 3 lock with a 2/3, some cover 4 in their base. And they had shown man-to-man on third down for most of the game. And it was working, like where cover zero, man-to-man, and then at the snap, they send one guy deep, and it was single safety deep, man-to-man underneath. They did that. And then Northwestern said, okay, you're going to play man-to-man. Then they showed it Michigan State, and Northwestern hit him with a little flare out of the running back for like 12, 14 yards. So that was a chess move against the chess move. Michigan State's like, okay, you're going to do that. Next time there was third down. It's like third quarter. Michigan State showed cover 4. And I think it was the end of the quarter or a timeout, end of the third quarter maybe, or a timeout. So Michigan State had already telegraphed they're going to play zone rather than the man-to-man they'd been playing. So Michigan State was making a chess move against that flare. So Northwestern saw it during a timeout. They're like, okay, they're not going to play man-to-man anymore, Northwestern thought. They're going to be playing zone. So look for the dig between the two safeties. And Michigan State did come out. They did play zone, dig between the safeties. Northwestern hit it down inside the 10-yard line. Michigan State made a stand, but I think they scored, on the Wildcat run. Anyway, so those were the chess moves, and Northwestern had the upper hand. But then in the fourth quarter, Michigan State really, I wish I had another chess analogy, but Michigan State took over the chess match at that point. On this play, 3rd and 7. Now, I said that they already shown some cover 3 locks, some cover 3, some quarters. Here on 3rd and 7. Now, this is when they showed everything. At pre-snap, they showed press man with a 0, like they had been earlier in the game. And then they, like, before the snap, they show like a 2 deep, which is what they showed on that dig inside the 10-yard line. Like, okay, chess match, we're going to do the same thing we did when you caught us earlier. But no, they showed press man, and then they showed 2 deep, and then at snap, they went into cover 3. They showed 3 different things and did it seamlessly, all on the same page. And that's when the quarterback is flushed, scramble rules. And Michigan State created scramble rules a number of times, 3 or 4 times. And each time Michigan State locked on in scramble rules and did the transition from their coverage to scramble rules man-to-man everywhere. And nobody was open on scramble rules. So he scramble rules over here, and he tried this Russell Wilson over to the other side. And when it's in the air, I'm like, he's going to complete that just like Russell Wilson in the Big Ten championship game in 2011. But Shaq Brown came out of nowhere. Boom! Hits the dude. Interception. Where'd he come from? How can you react like that? Well, it was from cover 3. He came out of his zone, even though he was locked up. But he was locked up in zone, but came off for the big hit interception. He came out from a cover 3 third. You can't really, you don't see a play like that from an off helper on man-to-man. It was from a cover 3. Great coverage there. The impressive thing is they showed 2 different things before they actually did something else and carried it out. Next time they had the ball. 1st and 10. 1st and 10, they did the cover 3 lock, the Seahawks thing. And that time, Shaq Brown had number 81 on the short side, incomplete. 2nd and 10, cover 6. And Shaq Brown was in press, scramble rules, coverage, flush, incomplete. Cover 6, what is cover 6? It's cover 2 on one side, cover 4 on the other. And did it seamlessly. Now it's 3rd and 10. Same thing as they did a minute ago. They show press, then they show 2 deep, and then into cover 3. Scramble rules, deep desperation, incomplete. A plethora of coverages. Very impressed. No miscommunications, same pageness. That's what we saw from the Kansas State defense late in the season last year under Hazelton when they beat Oklahoma in some of those games. In the Rutgers game, Michigan State was doing a lot of single deep. And you can see now that they were just getting into the teaching for the Rutgers game. They've got so much more installed now, and you've got the micro coaching going on with Harlan Barnett with the corners, and you've got Tressel back there with the safeties. And Tressel's not just coaching the safeties; he's also coaching that nickel. So he's coaching 3 guys. So he's coaching more players than a linebacker coach was. Linebacker coach right now is coaching 2. He's coaching 3. You got Tressel, you got Barnett with the intricacies, and you got Mel Tucker overseeing the whole thing, and Hazelton. And the pass defense this year for Michigan State is night and day compared to last year. Everybody knows D'Antonio was great, but defensive backs coach last year with Paul Haynes and who was it? Terrence. What was the other guy's name? Terrence Nils. Who was the corners coach last year? Terrence what?
Our
Terry
favorite
Samuel?
coach, Terry Samuel.
Terry Samuel, yeah. It just wasn't real good. Now defensive backfield coaching is very good, and that's going to stay like that for the foreseeable future, and that's a good thing to build on. Defensive tackles look good. Jalen Hunt, that injury didn't look good, but man, he was strong. On that 4th down stoppage early in the game when Antoine Simmons jumped in there and made the tackle for loss, it was Jalen Hunt, 2-gap in that left guard and putting him on roller skates, moving him back 1.5 yards, opening the door for Simmons to get in there. When you've got real good defensive tackles and a good secondary back there, that's really something to build on and hang your hat on going forward. Nils Deco, thanks for waiting. Somebody's going to criticize me for making you hold so long, but I don't have a producer. That's the way sports radio is, right, Nils? You used to run a talk show. Sometimes you keep people on hold.
Oh, yeah.
Are you okay, my man?
That's okay. I'm fantastic. It was a good weekend to be a Spartan.
Cheers.
I didn't see that coming.
I haven't talked to you lately, man. How about that?
I liked it. Liked it a lot.
How about it? I'm happy for you guys.
It was good.
I'm just a humble
I just
sports
think,
writer.
you talk about, Tucker and the whole operation on defense, and it was a whole different thing. It's like Northwestern was off balance from the get-go. I thought after Michigan State had the initial series, they went 3 and out, and I'm like, okay, this does not look good. And all of a sudden, Michigan State, made the adjustments offensively. The left side of the offensive line with Samac, Duplain, and A.J. Curry, they were head and shoulders above where they've been previously this year. But, and the fact that Rocky Lombardi can throw the ball, deep very well to Jalen Naylor. But going back to the defense, it just seems like the overall operation, like you talked about, is so much tighter than it has been in probably the last 2 years. When Barnett left for Florida State, I think things started to, game by game get worse and worse because Barnett is, probably one of the top 3 or 4 defensive backs coaches in the country. Tucker, that's how, he earned his chops. You got Tressel back there like you're talking about on the safeties and in the star position. But, Michigan State, there's a lot of young guys back there. You're going to see them continue to get better over time. And like you talked about Jalen Hunt, this is a redshirt freshman, and I don't know if you listen to the broadcast, but Scotty Hazelton said he's been the 3rd best defensive player they've had all year coming to that game. I would assume Simmons would be number 1. I don't know who would be number 2. Maybe Xavier Henderson, maybe Panashuk on the other side. But the fact that you're talking about a redshirt freshman from Belleville who Michigan State got lucky with. It seems like Michigan State always gets lucky with a kid like a Jack Conklin, gray shirt. You get Jalen Hunt as a kid that, Iowa couldn't get in, so they were trying to ship him to Ellsworth, or I think Ellsworth Community College out there in western Iowa. And Michigan State looks out, and this kid's going to look like to be a maybe 3 or 4 year starter down the road. It could be as good as anybody in the Big Ten next year. This is a legitimate defensive tackle that Michigan State hasn't had in the last 3 or 4 years. I think his ceiling is higher than a Raekwon Williams, higher than a Naquan Jones. There's a lot of opportunity with him.
I agree. He looks really good. Slade looks pretty good in there also. Jalen Hunt, you were hearing good things about him last year. D'Antonio was high on him, but I didn't picture this. He's quick and he's strong. He can 2-gap and move you back. But then when you're set to go against, if you're an offensive lineman, expecting him to come at you 2-gap, and then all of a sudden Michigan State's running a 1-gap and he's slanting, you're off balance and he's by you and doing big-time things. I hope we see him again this season. Don't want to speculate, but that injury didn't look great. But, gosh, he certainly looks good for the future. I agree with you, man. Jalen Hunt, Belleville, Michigan. A lot of talent coming out of Belleville. That doesn't hurt Michigan State either when a player like that is making that kind of noise.
Well, that's what they need going forward, and they continue to get, 5 of the top 10 kids in the state. And then it seems like to me that Georgia's going to be something that they build upon. There's no reason why they can't get, 3 or 4 kids out of there. And I think they're going to come down here into Texas, with what they did with Hampton Fay, the quarterback. And I can't remember the tight end's name that they've got a commitment from. But I think they understand the landscape of recruiting much better, getting into Louisiana. They had the Grigsby commitment who decommitted, but they understand, like Mel Tucker said, if you can't recruit to Michigan State, you can't recruit. And he's the first guy that said that, probably since Duffy Doherty. So, I'm really impressed with that because I think you're going to see an uptick in talent across the board. You're not going to see kids that sit around 3 and 4 years. And I know that everyone liked the D'Antonio way, but I think you've got to do what – you got to keep up with the Joneses. And it's, a kid doesn't measure up. Maybe there's a bad evaluation. Maybe it's just he hasn't matured or developed like you hope. Then you got, it's in the best interest of both parties. Let the kid move on and let him go find a place where maybe he can play in the MAC or he can play in the Ohio Valley or the Missouri Valley where he can play immediately. And, I think that's what we have to do going forward. Michigan State does the program, and I don't think Tucker's going to have any issue with doing that moving forward.
That was an interesting comment that Mel Tucker said yesterday or last week on his call-in radio show, and we wrote about it at SpartanMag.com last week when he said, if you cannot recruit at Michigan State, you can't recruit. You're right. That's the most optimistic recruiting bravado we've heard from a Michigan State football coach. I mean, he genuinely loves the university. When he talks about Michigan State, he mentions it as this great university. Now he's still just getting to know it, but he likes a lot about it. And
well, the fact that he also talks about having 550,000 people that he's held accountable to. I mean, not many people talk like that. It's not like James Franklin saying he's got 673,000 Penn State living alumni that he has to be accountable to. And that's the one thing that Tucker talks about, the 550,000 living alumni, which is what, I think 5th or 6th in the country. I mean, and that – there's your landscape, there's your footprint that you need to recruit to. And I think he understands that better than most. You know, he's a Midwestern guy, and you don't see this much. You know, Saban didn't have this. Saban never went south, right? He went to Michigan State. He was West Virginia, Ohio, Navy, Ohio State. You know, Tucker's been at Georgia, Alabama. He understands the bet. He's been, you know, played at Wisconsin, was a GA at Michigan State, was an assistant at Ohio State. I mean, he understands the landscape of college football probably at the highest level. If you look at anybody's track record in terms of where they've been as assistant, I'd find it hard to match someone that's done what he's done and also been a defensive coordinator with the Jaguars and the Bears. So show me somebody that's got a better track record in terms of resume across the board to understand football at the highest levels. I'd find it hard to find one better than his.
I agree. And I thought his resume was equal to that of Kirby Smart when Kirby Smart took the head coaching job at Georgia. Both were coordinators at the college level. You know, of course, Tucker for Kirby Smart, but Kirby Smart had.
But so you go back to Kirby Smart though. Kirby Smart had never coached in the North though. I don't think he has the balanced understanding of all 50 states and where you can find players.
What about this part where Mel Tucker points out that this is the 9th time that he has been part of year one on a staff or in general, going back to like middle school or something. I don't know if in high school, was he Cleveland Heights? Was it Kerry Hodakovic? Is that what he said? It's Kerry.
Yeah, I think he.
That's a coach that I've interviewed before. Anyway, and of course, Nick Saban at year one at LSU. He was a player at Barry Alvarez year one at Wisconsin. He was year one Georgia with Kirby Smart, of course, year one at Colorado. You know, now he's got a year one at Michigan State. He has seen how to start year one and maybe in some instances what not to do in year number one. That's a point that I made about Mark D'Antonio when he came to Michigan State. When he was restarting Michigan State after the John L. Smith era, he could call upon his experience in a number of ways, including in 1995 when he was part of the first coaching staff for Nick Saban at Michigan State. He was there for year one. And then he left Michigan State in 2001 to go to Ohio State, Jim Tressel, for Jim Tressel with year number one. D'Antonio had that experience of year number one. And then as a head coach, of course, he had year number one at Cincinnati, came to Michigan State, year number one at Michigan State, did a good job. Everybody knows what a legendary job Mark D'Antonio did. I made that point back then. That's something that I didn't think about with Mel Tucker until he mentioned it the last couple of weeks. He has been on the ground floor for some interesting operations, and some of his phrases and buzzwords, I mean, they are well-rooted in success. And I tell you what, he's always talked about being even keel and being neutral and finding the truth and all those things. And some of it, okay, all right, that's tried and true. People, he's subscribed to that from someone else, and that's fine. Coaches borrow from everywhere. But it really went to work last week, Nils, when that Maryland game was canceled, and they didn't bat an eye. They just turned the page, reshuffled the deck, and said, okay, we're getting ready for Northwestern starting 5 minutes ago. Go. You know what I mean? And he said, we're going to win the weekend. We're going to win the weekend. That might be a new one. That might be a new one. That might be a Tuckerism. And they set out to out-prepare Northwestern, given that they had 3 extra days. And Pat Fitzgerald said in his press conference on Tuesday, 5 days before the game, he says, we got to play another game that's got a week off before us. Pat Fitzgerald could kind of see that the deck was getting a little bit stacked against him there. He's got a good team. Everybody knows that. But, he was very complimentary of Michigan State, what he saw on film, complimentary of Mel Tucker. And then when it actually showed on the field, Fitzgerald didn't seem that surprised. many Michigan State observers were surprised by a lot of it. Fitzgerald said after the game, he'd seen some physicality there and some roots of some beginning progress. And he faced a Michigan State team that on that day didn't turn it over against a Northwestern team that had been turning everybody over.
So it's a matter of laws of average when you think about it. But you go back to what Debbie Doherty always says. Like I always say, it's not who you play, but it's when and where.
Absolutely.
And it seemed like Michigan State would always play Northwestern in a situation where they're coming off a big victory, and they would always kind of stub their toe when D'Antonio struggled against Fitzgerald, I thought, for the last 4 or 5 years. I don't know what the record is, but it seemed like to me it was a different operation. Hazelson's defense was better suited to negate what Northwestern was trying to do, and so I was very impressed with that.
Fitzgerald made the point that when when two new coaches face one another, there's a little bit of a chess match because you're not as familiar with one another. In other words, he was more familiar with D'Antonio, and it seemed like a lot of times they would get Michigan State's defenses caught in a game of ring around the rosies, and Michigan State would be chasing them around. And Northwestern's offense against other teams were not that successful. Hence, Fitzgerald fired his offensive coordinator after last season and brought in a guy that had coached with the dude that was in Tennessee and Cincinnati and Central Michigan, Butch Jones. He'd been with him, and he'd bounced around the NFL a little bit. But, Fitzgerald says, let's see, I've got a quote here. Let's see. I can't really find it here. I had a quote I was going to mention, but if I could paraphrase, he basically said when you're facing a new coach, there'll be some adjustments. This way, they adjusted, we adjusted. He said his quote is they went to some things, we adjusted. We went to some things, they adjusted. I think the difference is the turnovers. That's not all that scientific, but Fitzgerald had a lot of respect for Tucker before the game, after the game. Fitzgerald said something really interesting. He was talking about, some of the calls, and he was like, turnovers and this and that. And he kept saying, don't get me wrong, I want to give full credit to Michigan State. Michigan State played great, and they deserved it, and they played a cleaner game than we did. And then Fitzgerald said, a lot of times we win a game, and all the other side ever says is what they did wrong, as if we had nothing to do with the victory. So Fitzgerald wanted to make sure to give Michigan State credit for winning the game. But I thought that was a little bit revealing that there have been coaches in the past that have rankled him because they've not given Northwestern credit when Northwesterns went out there and kicked their tail. This time, Fitzgerald, to his credit, credited Michigan State. If they played again next week, would it be tough? Maybe Michigan State could match up well with them. I'm not sure. But on this day, Michigan State got it done. Credit to Fitzgerald. Good winner, good loser. Pat Fitzgerald is good for college football.
Oh, he's the best. If my son couldn't play at Michigan State, I'd want him to play for Pat Fitzgerald. I know that numerous posters on the message board said the same thing. He's a quality individual. He's a Chicago Bear, throwback, suburbs of Chicago. He's what college football and, the Midwestern version of football is. I think he's done an amazing job there. If you look at what, since Gary Barnett, took over that program, and then Randy Walker had the success until he passed away, and then what Fitzgerald's done, it's amazing. Because when we grew up, Northwestern and Wisconsin were always 9th and 10th in the Big Ten. And it's amazing to me as a 48-year-old, middle-aged man, it's like, okay, how did this happen overnight? Like Northwestern and Wisconsin are two programs that outside of Ohio State, maybe Penn State, and then they're right there with Iowa, as that, two consistent programs that are going to always, be a tough opponent. Wisconsin's done an amazing job because of Alvarez, but I think, the job that Fitzgerald continues to do there at Northwestern, I hope he never leaves. I hope he retires. I think he's 46, if I'm not mistaken. I'd like to see him retire in 20 years and see what he can do and do some amazing things, because he does a great job here in Metro Houston recruiting. Like Patty Fisher is a kid at Katy. if you look at all the kids they recruit kids from big-time high school programs because they understand the expectations academically and, mentally and physically in terms of football. Katie's probably one of the top 4 programs in the state, and Patty Fisher's on a defense, I think 4 or 5 years ago, that destroyed Austin Lake Travis. I mean, it was probably the best example of probably the best high school defense maybe ever through the state of Texas, some people think. I mean, they hit just like Patty Fisher does when he was a senior in high school. I mean, they've done an amazing job. And Northwestern does a great job here in the Houston area. I mean, I remember talking to Randy Rogers, who used to run a recruiting service down here in Texas, and he would fly up to Northwestern. He would give Fitzgerald and his staff, the kids that he thought were Northwestern, Midwestern type kids that they could come out here into either the Metroplex in Dallas or into Houston and have success there in the Big Ten, and they're living proof of that.
And they've got hammers. You talk about Wisconsin and Northwestern and what they've done differently. They've got guys coached up, and they're hammers. In that Northwestern-Wisconsin game, it was hammers versus hammers. Iowa's got hammers, right? And some of these other teams, I mean, you're looking at Michigan and the problems they're having. They have highly ranked guys, but they've checked out on that head coach. And they've got a diva problem there. I've been saying it for years. They've got a diva problem. They come in and they get patted on the back on the way in and told how great they are on the way in, and they're all about what they are on paper. And then when it comes to actually getting on the field and taking on a block and defeating a block and winning a collision, it's not a lot of interest in doing that. I know they've had injuries. Michigan State's been through that in recent years also. But in terms of just will and fire, Ronnie Bell's got some fire, and the running back Haskins does. The rest of it, the wheels are coming off, and I don't know where that's going to head out. But Northwestern, we'll see if they can rebound on this thing. Speaking of rebounding, Nils Deco, what about Joey Hauser getting double-digit rebounds in the first half against Notre Dame? Did you see that game? What were your thoughts? Did you watch that? Did you watch the Notre Dame game?
Oh, I watched it all. I mean, you talk about a Spartan Saturday, buddy. I mean, that was my kind of Saturday. I didn't do much. From about 2:30 to 9, my son and I watched the Spartan football game, watched the basketball game. I mean, that basketball game, I think it was 23-18 or 23-19, and then Michigan State went on like a 26-0 run. But it's amazing to me the skill level of this team. And I know I say it every time, and I'm Mr. Embellisher, and this is going to be – but I think offensively, from a skill point, this is the best, most skilled offensive team since the 2005 team across the board. I'm not saying they have those kind of players, but if you look from 1 to 13 – they have more skill than we've had. Michigan State has guys that can put it on the deck. And Michigan State was a program, and we talked about this one time. Like, I was like, why doesn't Izzo, look at the guys that can put it on the deck? Because it seemed like to me he never had those kind of guys. And you went and said that maybe he thought that was too much of an individual type of player, and that's not what he's looking for. But this team has more skill than any team I can remember since 2005. Across the board, from 1 to 13. I'm not saying it's as great as some teams, but across the board, there are more guys that can do things with the basketball, on the dribble, and put it in the hoop than any time I can remember since 2005.
Would you agree that that is the case for basketball, the grassroots level, nationwide? There's more skill. I've heard Dan Dockich say that, and he's coached the AAU. You've been around AAU basketball a lot. Dockich is like, man, these guys in the AAU circuit, the way they can handle the ball, and he's like power forwards in high school can handle the ball better than I could, and I was a scholarship guy in Indiana. Talking about Dockich, paraphrasing Dockich. I would agree with that. I think the off-season programs, players specializing, the clinics, the drills, the way people share drills. I think there's better skill nationwide in the sport of basketball. Would you think that's part of the reason?
Yeah, it's European. I mean, if you look at the Steph Currys and you look at the Luka Doncic, you look at the Dirk Nowitzki's, I mean, there is more skill across the board because I think the European influence and the soccer influence, just in terms of fundamentals, the things you have to have in order to at least have some success as a basketball player. And, you see more and more of it, every day. And then, you take that and you put that with the guy that plays for Coach Izzo and teaches him how to think the game, then you've really got something. You talk about Cassius Winston. There's a guy that was probably had one of the highest basketball IQs, in the last 15 or 20 years in college basketball. He could do things, and he wasn't athletic. He can't dunk, but he could do all the things that are necessary to be a point guard and pass the ball as well as anybody. His shot, a lot of people thought coming into college it was kind of a shot that maybe you have to retool, but he never retooled it, and he ended up shooting, I think, 43% from three last year. He was a 40-40 85 guy, which is kind of the number that everyone looks for. I'm very impressed, but that's the thing with this team. I think it's like, Foster Lawyer's taken out of the game completely, right? Rocket Watts doesn't do anything against Eastern Michigan. He was 1 of 6, had 2 points. Really, I know he has the bad knee. Comes in and plays really well against Notre Dame, has 6 assists. Joey Hauser does what he does. Aaron Henry does what he does. I think Marcus Bingham is the X factor. If Michigan State wants to get to the second, third weekend in the tournament, if there is, there will be. But I think his ceiling, and it seems like to me he's getting better every game, getting more comfortable, doing things that he can do versus things he can't do. He's not out there shooting three-pointers and trying to be, Jaren Jackson, because I think that was, there are a lot of guys that want to be the 3-and-D guy or they want to be the mismatch 4 guy. Well, he's not going to be that this year. But Joey Hauser is our mismatch 4 guy that can pass as well as anybody. And you'll see, I think Bingham, and I don't know what the issue is with Julius Marble. I thought we'd see a little bit more of him, but maybe Kithier and Bingham can split 40 minutes a game. And I think, Bingham can also allow guys like Foster Lawyer to stay on the court longer because if they do get by him, he does a great job of swatting shots. I think he's swatted 8 shots already in the first 2 games.
Mm-hmm. He's an eraser back there. He's a rim protector, and he's moving
and Michigan
smartly.
State's never had that.
He's moving smartly. Drew Namick was underrated in that regard.
I forgot about him, the big redhead. You're right. He was a great shot blocker, and Idong Ibach wasn't bad as well.
And Ibach didn't play a whole lot of minutes, and Namick was not quite as good as Bingham can be in terms of affecting a lot. But Namick also could wall you off, keep you from the rim and rebound and those type of things. But Bingham, I agree, man. He's an eraser back there. He changes things, and he's been better this year than I was anticipating. So you've mentioned that Michigan State has better skill, top to bottom, in your opinion. Does Michigan State have the point guard facilitator? We talked about this earlier in the show. Duke is going to be putting pressure on Michigan State's point guards. That's what Duke does, and that's one of the things that they've given Michigan State trouble with over the years, ramping up that pressure in the backcourt. Duke majors in that. Jordan Goldwire is an excellent defensive player. He's a defensive specialist. Krzyzewski's already looked at the film. He's looking at Lawyer. He's saying, okay, I'm going to find out how he can do with, Mike Singletary breathing down his neck. Can he complete passes when that's going on? Or Richard Dent, pick your guy from the 85 Bears. And if Lawyer has trouble with it, can Rocket, does Michigan State, with all that skill, do they have the one very important skill, a point guard that can facilitate in the face of pressure?
But do you have to, though? Do you run offense through Joey Hauser? Do you run offense through Aaron Henry? Do you go back to the 2000 national champion?
That's what Duster said on the Final Four message board today when I posed that question. But in order to run the offense through Henry or Hauser, you've got to complete a pass to one of those 2 guys. And I know
why don't you let them bring it up, though? I mean, why don't you change it up like Michigan State did in 2000? It was Scott Skiles' idea. I don't even remember that press breaker. Skiles, this is the only time Skiles was ever involved with Izzo, right? And he was there for the Final Four. I remember hearing about this. And they wanted to change something up against Florida's press, right? They thought, okay, they're going to try to pressure Mateen. So they had an outlet. Who brought the ball up in that 2000 against pressure a lot?
Against the Florida press, they usually got it to Granger, and Granger made the hook and lateral pass to other people.
Exactly. So why don't you do that with Joey Hauser if you think you can't?
Well, that's full court pressure. So you're saying turn that into a half court situation?
If you can, if you're thinking that you can't withstand the pressure that Duke's going to bring, because Duke, as you well know, Matt Jones, which Jones was last year, the one that took it to us, and we played really poorly, but it was a bad situation with Cassius' mom not being there for that game. But I think that's something as an outlet. So you take that out of the equation. Say, okay, you know what? We're going to put them off the ball and see if we can't run our offense. Henry can bring the ball up. Who's going to guard him? Matt Hurt?
Hurt is 5. So it might be Wendell.
5.
Matt Hurt?
Wendell Moore?
Yeah, Wendell Moore play the wing. Stewart, the freshman from Chicago, Whitney Young. And they got Goldwire. They brought Stewart off the bench against Coppin State. He scored 24. Does he start in this game? I'm not sure. Joey Baker was the guy that started, played 14 minutes against Coppin State last year against Michigan State, came off the bench.
Who was the guy that killed us last year? Who was the guy that couldn't miss? Is that Baker?
Hurt was 2 out of 3 from three-point range last year against Michigan State.
No, Baker was the kid. Didn't Baker I thought Baker killed us.
Baker had 10 points.
Yeah, he hadn't made a shot all year until that game.
5 out of 6 from the field. He's 6'6". He started against Coppin State, only played 14 minutes. Does Stewart, the freshman, replace him in the starting lineup? Possibly. So Baker at 6'6", he probably guards Henry, or does Stewart guard Henry? Duke's a little smaller, maybe not the great shooting team they've been in the past, but they're still Duke. You know, they might show up and hit threes in this particular game. They certainly do not have Vernon Carey Jr. Vernon Carey Jr., Michigan State did not have an answer for him at that point in the season last year. 28 points, 8 out of 16 from the field. Trey Jones is gone. You know, that's a significant heartbeat that's gone. Trey Jones did a lot of things well for them, 20 points against Michigan State on that particular day. Last year, Duke shot 56% from the field, 46% from three against Michigan State. They only shot 33% against Coppin State. So it's a different type of Duke team. They're still trying to find themselves. But you make the point about
that means they're going to shoot 55% tomorrow.
You were talking a few minutes ago about percentages working themselves out. They could work against Michigan State in that regard. You talk about the pressure you see. So, you know, throwing out, the pressure release to send the offense through Henry or Hauser. That's okay on the chalkboard, but you got pressure, so you still have to throw that pass well, but also they will steal that pass. The old Dean Smith run and jump defense, they throw two at you. I'm not saying Duke's going to throw two at you, but the steal that North Carolina used to make with Dean Smith in the run and jump was the next pass. So you have the pressure here, and they also deny where you're throwing it to. Like if Michigan State wants to do tandem backcourt, run the guards through stuff that they do, feed the top of the key, and then they go through the lane. Duke has shut that off in the past also by denying that at the top of the key. Purdue's done that also. Michigan State, well, they'll have some changes, I would imagine. Izzo said they're going to worry less about Duke and more about themselves. I don't know if he's just putting that out there for Krzyzewski or not, but he says he only has one game of tape to go on from Duke, and that's true. He says they're looking as far back into the AAU time to get a look at people. I would imagine like Roach is a backup point guard. They bring off the bench a freshman, only played a couple minutes the other day. So they're probably looking at his high school film. The Williams kid, he's a McDonald's All-American, played 4 minutes against Coppin State. I'm sure they're looking at his high school film to try to get a beat on those guys. So they'll do their usual film. I don't know if they're doing their March level of, all-nighter Red Bull preparation. Maybe they will. But Michigan State has already shown that Michigan State is doing a few things just a little bit different. Early in that game, I think it was for Hauser, Michigan State scripted like their third or fourth possession. They set a screen along the baseline and ran a flex cut. I've never seen them do that. Old Gary Williams, Maryland, flex cut, screen, down low, 2 points. I was like, man, it's not a new play, but I don't remember Michigan State ever doing that under Izzo in 26 years.
That's a Mark Few, Doug Wojcik thing from Gonzaga, I think.
Yep. Gonzaga used to run a lot of flex with going all the way back to who are some of those dudes? Who was the dude with the floppy hair? Dan Dickow and
Dickow and Morrison and Santangelo. Those original Gonzaga guys.
Yeah, that was flex cut stuff. So Michigan State ran that, got a bucket. So okay, now Duke's got to get ready for that one. And then Michigan State also, I forget what the universal term is for, but when you run a ball screen, that's one thing. But if you set a screen for the ball screener, I'm not talking about screen the screener jump shot, I'm talking about screen for the ball screener. Michigan State did that 4 or 5 times. So if you want to play ball screen defense, and I'm Thomas Kithier, and I'm going to go set a ball screen, and you're guarding me, I'm setting a ball screen, you can see it coming, and you can do your hedge help recover or switch, whatever you want to do. But if I'm Thomas Kithier and you're guarding me, and someone sets a screen on you before I go set the ball screen, now you got to get through an obstacle to get there to play your ball screen defense. It's just another layer. Other teams have done it. It's the first time I've seen Michigan State do it, and they did it pretty well. It helped them out with some of their ball screen stuff. So Izzo, they're adding some stuff. So he says, so they're worried. They're concerned about their stuff. Duke is just going to be Duke with a lot of the things they do. I didn't get to watch all the Coppin State game. I saw a condensed version, so I think Duke was playing some zone, and Duke's zone really was a big component of Duke beating Michigan State 3 times ago in the Champions Classic, I think in Chicago or New York, one of those places where they played zone. And Michigan State could never really get them out of it, and Michigan State lost very frustratingly. But if Duke plays zone this time, Michigan State's played 2 zone teams and done a good job with it. One thing that Michigan State did well with their zone offense against Notre Dame came out, they saw Foster Loyer, they saw what Loyer did against Eastern Michigan. They wanted to get out on Loyer to keep him from being a zone buster. So getting out on a point guard so far, what does that do? Foul line. So Michigan State was feeding that foul line and doing some duck-ins and high-lows and getting some nice high percentage shots against that zone offense. So I don't know if Duke's going to play zone or not, but it's going to be fun to watch, man. We got some basketball, Nils Deco. I've had you on the air a long time. I don't know if people are hating it or not, but no one else has called in. Normally, if someone called in, Nils, I think so little of you, I'll just bump you and bring the next person on, but no one else called.
Okay, I appreciate it. I got to get going back to work, though.
Get some work done. I really appreciate you calling in and all your insight. What's your gut feel? Michigan's thinking to beat Duke?
Dude, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. I'd just be happy just to, be a competitive game because, it's too much pressure. I mean, I put too much – this game, as long as Izzo puts too much pressure on himself, I think there won't be as much pressure this year because there won't be all the fanfare, the crowd. It's not the old Champions Classic. I think sometimes Izzo puts so much pressure on himself that it kind of works against us. I don't think Michigan State's going to have that same issue. I think it'll be a competitive game. If Michigan State plays like they did between minute 10 and minute 30 against Notre Dame, I think they win the basketball game. I think it comes down to that. I think they can't do what they typically do against Duke, get down by 15 points and have to work their way all the way back. I can't remember if it was when Chris Hill was playing in like 03 or 04. Michigan State got down real bad early, and then they almost came back on like an Allen Anderson, had a shot at the end to win it. I don't know what year that was. It would have been, 2004 or 2003? Do you remember that?
I remember a lot of them. I don't remember that one.
They got down big like they always do against Duke, but that game they came back, and I thought Allen Anderson had a shot to win the game. They ended up losing by 3 or 4. And, that goes back to –
Was that 05 at Cameron Indoor? December 04?
It would have been 04, 05. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then they got him in the rematch in the Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah, right there. Yep. Right there in Austin, Texas with J.J. Redick shooting 40-footers over Bograkis, and Bograkis getting yelled at.
Yeah,
Best ever.
I was courtside for both of those games. The game you're talking about in 04, I don't remember the end scenario you're talking about. I remember Michigan State having success – Paul Davis right down the middle of the floor with the Izzo Heathcote fast break, and Duke having trouble getting back on that with Shavlik Randolph against Paul Davis. Couldn't quite run with him. And
Sheldon Williams. Sheldon Williams had a hard time with Paul Davis.
And, Michigan State didn't convert it into quite enough points that night, but the beginnings were there for Michigan State to give them all they could handle in a rematch. If not playing in Cameron and some of those other things. How about this? Duke played against Coppin State. Did you see how many free throws Duke shot in that game?
Probably 85.
10.
That's it?
10.
That's it. Well, that's not good.
Meaning they'll get their share this week? If Krzyzewski's, and do you know how many free throws Duke made? 4. Duke was 4 of 10. Duke was 4 out of 10 in the foul line against Coppin State. So I didn't see all the games, so I don't know if Krzyzewski, he didn't say anything about it and other than he was frustrated he only got 10 free throws or whatever. He wasn't saying it was bad officiating. But Krzyzewski, he's got Michigan State coming to town, and ACC against Big Ten is a big deal to him. It's almost as big as American flag versus the hammer and sickle. Okay, so Krzyzewski, he's a Team USA basketball guy. I don't know. I joked about this on the message board. When he only shot 10 free throws in that game, Krzyzewski was probably making some phone calls. He was probably calling
he's making the calls. Yeah,
he was calling the Pentagon. He was calling the State Department. He might have called the Kremlin because I don't know if he's friendly with them now or not. But he was probably calling the ACC.
He's going to call the Polish Mafia is what he's going to do.
Polish Mafia in Chicago.
They're going to be refs in the game.
He was calling the ACC headquarters. I'm joking, but they'll be shooting more than 10 free throws against Michigan State. Is it safe to say that?
35 easy.
All right. So, Nils, I'm going to let you go. Get back to work.
Okay, buddy.
Keep sending
Have a great night.
Yeah, keep sending it down the line. There he goes, Nils Deco. We're always glad to get his insight. He is one of the more astute followers of Michigan State sports I've ever met, but a lot of you guys are in the same category. Appreciate all of you. Let's go over here to the chat area and get to some of these questions that were posed a long time ago. Matthew Bobe says, how impressed are you with Mel Tucker in year one? I gotta admit, I've kind of been up and down with it. And I probably reacted too much based on too little, but Indiana and Iowa games not being competitive in those games, losing to Rutgers, just like Tucker said, unacceptable for the standard they're trying to set. But they really coached well in that Michigan game, and they deflated Michigan. I mean, they killed their spirit. It's clear. And Michigan State was well coached in this game. The organization, like I was talking about, from Thursday on, the organization. And you can tell he's got his players. There's will there. There's a fight there. They listen. They believe. They're not worried about being 1-3. They came out to win collisions and do their job and do their assignment. And they're doing their job and assignments better. And that offensive line, we talked about that earlier in the program tonight, talking about how it might have been a little bit it might have seemed it was a little bit deceptive that Michigan State was actually making some progress with their blocking up front, but it didn't really show itself because they didn't have a chance to run a lot of tailback plays earlier in the season. But the offensive line and some of the things that they were doing with run blocking, it was simple, but the inside zone plays they were running, just simple inside zone, but getting movement with the center, SpartanMag, and the guards. That's where it starts. But I'm looking for one play in particular. But also, I mean, Michigan State tackled well. You talk about blocking and tackling, all those things. Connor Hayward said after the first run play of the second series, his quote after the game was, after that play, he knew that Michigan State was going to be able to run the ball on that day. Next play, deep, 7-0. But Hayward had an aggressiveness about him, lowering his shoulder, running harder. He even looked faster on one of those toss sweeps to the outside, which was a new play. I don't think they'd run that before this year. Maybe they did. And they also ran a pin and pull with the center pulling, SpartanMag getting out front. I remember them trying to do that with Matt Allen against Rutgers. He just wasn't quite quick enough to get out there and get it done. But that toss sweep, second play of the fourth drive, Hayward gained 6 on that one. That was on the fourth drive, gained 6. And on that one, SpartanMag pulled, Duplain pulled. Duplain got the play side linebacker. SpartanMag didn't quite square up Fisher, but SpartanMag looked mobile on that play, toss sweep. You have a center pulling, that can open up a lot of things for you. And he showed he had the mobility to do it, even though he didn't quite square up Fisher to get him completely blocked. So Fisher got a hand on Hayward. Safety got a hand on him and still gained 6 yards. But what I liked was, let me find this log block. Yeah, it was where Michigan State really flexed their muscle against Northwestern. I don't remember if it was 7-0 or 10-0 at the time. I think it was 10-0. This was on the drive. They went 85 yards to take a 17-0 lead. J.D. Duplain, 10-yard holding penalty. 1st and 20 at their own 20-yard line. Remember this? 1st and 20 at their own 20-yard line. And Michigan State ran the ball 3 straight times and picked up the first down. I was like, what the hell is this? Where did this come from? And Fitzgerald was probably saying the same thing. So were a bunch of Wisconsin fans probably, and Iowa fans. They're like, that's not the Michigan State team we played. And the Michigan fans that were watching, because they didn't want Michigan State to win another game, they were sure that Michigan State was going to only beat Michigan and lose the rest of them. Didn't happen. 1st and 20 at the 20-yard line. Michigan State, and they ran inside zone all 3 times, slightly different variations. 1st and 10, inside zone Hayward. 1st and 20, gained 8 yards. Duplain and our Curry, double team block on number 96 defensive end actually 96, moved him back 4 yards. I don't know who 96 was. I watched the Wisconsin game closely. I never saw him on the field. I don't know if he missed the game or not. 99 and 49 are usually the defensive ends with 55. 96 came in, wasn't quite. He was more like a Northwestern type of player. Gained 8. Next play. Now, on that one, that was pistol with a tight end attached. Next time is shotgun sidecar. I don't know what terminology you want to use, but instead of pistol, it was a full shotgun sidecar. This time, tight end was kind of interior as an H, but the same inside zone. Hayward gained 10 yards on that one. And on this play, this is the log block I'm talking about. This is offensive line seeing things and reacting. This is coaching. This is instruction. This is repetition. This is veteran play. All right, so it's inside zone. Northwestern comes with like this. They kind of slanted the defensive line, and actually they stunted on this one. Defensive tackles stunted on this one. So Samac and Duplain at center and guard. There's a stunt. The defensive tackle kind of goes away from them. So they stay low and just track it inside, log block on the middle linebacker, and take the middle linebacker out. And on the play side, A.J. Arcuri took on number 96, the defensive end, completely controlled number 96. And Hayward sidestepped one guy, which we hadn't seen from him. Sidestep, a little sauce on the hips. So you got that log block inside. You got Arcuri doing his job. You got Hayward making a guy a little bit miss, a little bit, gain of 10. Inside zone, same play. But in the face of a stunt, against Rutgers, that would have like screwed Michigan State up. But this time, stunt, undeterred. They stayed low, turned the corner, log, seal it off. But like physical, like robots, which is a good thing in the offensive line. You can see that coaching and the teaching starting to resonate. 3rd and 2 now. Hayward checks out, back to that pistol. This time, the tight end comes in motion to that same H area. So they did 3 different things with the tight end. First down, he was attached to the line of scrimmage like a conventional tight end. Second time, he's inward like an interior H. Third time, he starts out, split out, comes in motion to be an interior H. Elijah Collins gains 4 on this one. Now, Samac got away with a little bit of a flinch. They could have flagged him for false start there. Instead of 3rd and 2, it would have been 3rd and 7. And, a little thing like that can change the game. There were some calls that helped Michigan State out. That pick, that interception by Shaq Brown takes it back to 54 yards to the 11-yard line. The pass interference, the flag they picked up, never explained that one. That was fortunate for Michigan State. A few of those went against Michigan State. Right here, got away with a little bit of a flinch. But Northwestern, they slandered the defensive lineman. The linebackers came on a cross linebacker blitz. And Carrick at right guard. All right, they slant away from him. He just picked up Fisher. Carrick did. Blitzing linebackers, picks up Fisher. And these linebackers against offensive linemen most of the year are getting off blocks and defeating offensive linemen on a regular basis. They were not beating Michigan State blocks on this day. Tyler Hunt was that interior H, picks up Gallagher. Gallagher's a tough physical linebacker for Northwestern. You got Carrick and Hunt picking him up. And Tyler Hunt and Collins gains 4 yards, first down. Inside zone, inside zone, inside zone. 8, 12, 4. Wow. Looked like a football team. Very next play, same inside zone play. Elijah Collins gains 12. Jaden Reed, wide receiver blocking. The best I've seen Jaden Reed block. And Jaden Reed was not a good blocker in the first 3 or 4 games. This game, he had 1 or 2 blocks that were like important ones, good ones. This one, Jaden Reed comes down, taking on playside linebacker Bergen, former walk-on from Country Day, I think it is. A guy that's steadily improved, physical guy. Jaden Reed, not the most physical wide receiver, 5'10", but Jaden Reed comes in on Bergen and just ear holes him. Bam! Nice block. 12 yards. Wide receivers blocking. Nice. Couple plays later, 1st and 10, 30-yard line. Now they've been running inside zone, inside zone. Now it looks like inside zone, but they leave 99 optioned. They leave 99 unblocked. He's being optioned. He didn't know he was being optioned. Michigan State doesn't run that a whole lot. They optioned him. Zone read, keeper, Rocky Lombardi, gain of 12. On the ground in that drive, outstanding. On the ground in that drive, Michigan State, 8 runs. They go 85 yards for a touchdown. On the ground, they had gains of 6, 9, 8, 10, 13, 10, 4, 11. Touchdown. Looked like a different team. Looked like a team that's been coached well. So that's a long way of answering your question. Get back to Tyler Hunt. Interesting what he's done. Michigan State's had those injuries to Matt Dotson, injuries to now, Trenton Gillison missed this game. Tyler Hunt was targeted once on a 3rd and 10, square in. completed for 15 yards. Michigan State was up 17-3 at the time. They didn't score on that drive, but that helped keep Michigan State's momentum going. Michigan State had 76 offensive plays in this game. Tyler Hunt, former walk-on, former punter, played 72 of the 76 plays. You talk about recruiting your own locker room and manufacturing a functional player. I mean, Tyler Hunt was from Gobles, Michigan. Is that where he's from? You know, he was a good quarterback in high school, punter, good basketball player, good athlete. Punted for Michigan State back 3 years ago when Michigan State had like 5 punters get injured. And Hunt blew out his ACL that year in practice, but Hunt averaged like 40 yards a punt that year. And I thought Hunt was going to beat out Behringer and the transfer from UTEP. What's his name? Mitchell Gefford? What's his name? Crawford. Mitchell Crawford. I thought Hunt was the guy that had a chance to win that battle, but Hunt, in the meantime, got in the weight room, bulked up, came out, tried him at tight end. We had heard from tight ends Coach Gilmore and offensive coordinator Jay Johnson that they were excited about Tyler Hunt, that had come out of nowhere and did some good things. I was like, okay, that's a good story. I mean, they're happy for Tyler Hunt. I'll believe it when I see it. Well, after that game, we saw it through the course of the season leading up to this, but in this game, Dotson out, got hurt in the Michigan game. Gillison must have gotten hurt during practice. I thought he was fine against Indiana, out. So now Tyler Hunt is starting, and there's not much else at tight end. And he played 72 of the 76 plays against that defense, which is a good defense. And those linebackers might be the most difficult linebackers to block, play in and play out in the Big Ten. And Hunt got it done. Targeted him once, 15 yards, first down. Blocking, pretty good all day. As far as other tight ends go, Adam Burgos got in there for 8 snaps. Just kind of average. You know, he's doing the best he can. We'll see. I posted this on the Underground Bunker message board during the game, during preseason or during pregame warmups, that Evan Morris was working out as was warming up as a tight end. Evan Morris, kickoff specialist from Ovid Elsie, Michigan. Another one of those guys that played some wide receiver tight end in high school, did a little bit of everything in high school at Ovid Elsie. Tall guy, good athlete. But he came to Michigan State as a walk-on kickoff specialist. And he started being listed as a tight end here and there. And I'm watching pregame, and I'm way up there. I'm like, is that Evan Morris? I'm pretty sure it was. And you look on the play sheet, and he saw 5 snaps at tight end. I still have to go over the game to find out exactly what he did and how he did. But that's what Michigan State's using at tight end. A former walk-on third-string punter, current walk-on just call him a walk-on. A walk-on third-string punter and a walk-on third-string kickoff specialist. Those are the tight ends. But you know what those guys are? They're football players. Small-town football players from Gobles and Ovid Elsie. They've hit the weight room. They want to play. And you get those walk-on guys from in-state. I don't want to say you can never have enough of them, but if you're Michigan State and you want to do big things, that needs to be part of the formula, I'd say. You look at Wisconsin. They're loaded with those type of guys. I don't know, but helmet sticker to Tyler Hunt for sure. Dan Fernandez says, let's go back over here to the chat area. Comp, do you believe that this is... Oh, we already went through that question. Hayden Vischer says, Hauser and Johnson had a little back and forth on Twitter this summer. I'd expect them to guard each other quite a bit. Both are from Wisconsin. Yeah, Johnson is from Milwaukee. Joey Hauser was asked about that a little bit today. He says, yeah, we've crossed paths a little bit, but he didn't really say that they talk a lot. But Hayden, you mentioned that. I was not aware that they had done that. Anyway, Don Strait. This is an ornament, not really a bell. I think I broke it. So, Tip Jar, Don Strait, Hayden Vischer, appreciate you guys. You know, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. All right, Hayden Vischer, Marvin Clark, thank you. For about an hour ago, I was trying to figure out who were some of those power forwards that Michigan State tried against Middle Tennessee State, and none of them really stuck, and Marvin Clark was the guy that fouled out in 11 minutes against Purdue 1 week earlier, but only played about 10 minutes in that game. I love Izzo, but in that game, I thought they were still trying to do like bench players to send messages, which usually he's finished sending messages when the Big Ten tournament ends. After that, he usually just sticks with his guys, and they're just better for better or worse. But that game against Middle Tennessee State, I think he was still trying to send messages. I don't know. I've never asked him about that specifically, and I don't know. I don't know how that would go if I did ask him. Izzo's a great one though. Mr. Bowman says Watts or Lawyer can't get into foul trouble. Jacob C. says 15 gross really impressed me on Saturday. I would agree with that, Jacob C. And we were high on Angelo Gross over at SpartanMag.com when he committed after we looked at his film. Because the tackling he was doing on Saturday against Northwestern, he was doing that on film. Reminded me a little bit of a cross between Danikos Allen and Myron Bell. Physical tackler, forceful will type of guy. You saw what he did. And like I was talking about this with Conan Dyke in the VCast after the games on Saturday, we always said that when Mark D'Antonio gets a commitment, back when he was coach, when he got a commitment from a defensive back from the state of Ohio that was a 3-star recruit, anytime that D'Antonio got a commitment from an Ohio defensive back who was a 3-star recruit, add another star. It's just how you translate the math. It's like the metric system. 3 stars in Ohio, D'Antonio, 4 stars. Latest example, Angelo Gross. 3-star recruit? No. DJV1855 says Dockery. MSU recruited him hard. Talking about Sean Dockery, the Duke point guard that came in and gave Michigan State trouble in the backcourt in the silver uniforms. He said Michigan State had something like a 700 winning percentage wearing the silver uniforms. Michigan State had a 700 winning. I think Michigan State only wore the silver uniforms once, and they took him out behind Beaumont's tower after that and buried him or burned him or something. MM Drippy says, anyone know the jerseys they are teasing for this weekend for football? My uncle painted some new candy paint dark green helmets for us for this season, but he said there was no new uniform for that helmet. Drippy, you lost me on that one. I probably shouldn't have read that whole thing. Hayden Fisher, thanks again. Saying happy holidays. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'm hitting this horn thing over here, but apparently you guys are not hearing the horn. Maybe it's a dog whistle. And only dogs can hear it. What'd you say? Detroit Spartan's trying to give me a message here. I couldn't tell if you could hear the air horn or not. Let me try it again. All right, now let me know if you heard that or not. Detroit Spartan. Thanks, man. Appreciate the personal sponsorship. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate that. So let me know if you heard the air horn. Yeah, you did hear the air horn, right? No, I'm not seeing if you guys are hearing the air horn or not. Anyway. Sam Witzke says, hey, Com, do you expect any staff changes during the offseason? Will Tucker be as loyal to his staff as D'Antonio? No, he won't. I've kind of heard that a little bit, that, he's told the players that if they want to stay, they've got to, you play to stay. And same for the coaches. It's my understanding he's told the coaches the same thing. You want to stay, you got to produce every day. So, no, I don't think that's going to be the case. So, do I think anyone's going to be gone? So Detroit Spartan, okay, you did hear the horn. Good, great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. I don't know. I don't know on the inside right now who's doing well and who's not. I don't know. But they've been told you got to keep it strong. Now, I always thought Mike Tressel would be a guy that might be looking to go elsewhere because his resume is outstanding. And there will be a deep pockets program somewhere that'll want him to come in as defensive coordinator. I'm thinking like an SEC type of school. So I would not be surprised if Mike Tressel gets offered 7 figures to be a coordinator somewhere. And if that happens, I don't think, Michigan State is a well-funded program right now, but not funded well enough to pay a safeties coach 7 figures. So that one, just by pure economics, Michigan State might have a hard time holding on to him. I think he's done a good job with those safeties. And like I said, he's not only coaching the safeties, he's also coaching the nickel. So he's coaching 3 guys. So that's next to the defensive line coach, he's coaching more people than anyone on the defense. And he's doing a good job. Detroit Spartan says the Comp is still in the press box 2 days later. That's dedication. I am still in the press box. They locked me in here. And 2 days later, they don't know I'm here. and I found the key to the scoreboard, so I turned the scoreboard on, as you can see. And I invited the Northwestern players back out onto the field. So they're out there still warming up. They think that they're going to play Michigan State again. Old Tuck, the bell cow, is late. Old Tuck is late. It's unacceptable. He didn't get in the starting lineup. All right. Old Tuck says, do you expect Duke's ball pressure and passing lane pressure to cause Michigan State issues tomorrow like many times in the past? Yeah, I think it could be a problem, and we talked about that twice during the show already. You'll have to go back and listen to that. But, yeah, I think that is the first thing that Michigan State needs to navigate and handle. And it's good that they're going to see that because Lawyer and Rocket Watts, baptism by fire, you're playing Notre Dame. You're playing Duke. They're going to come after you. Handle it. Go. And if they can't, get back to work on it. All right. Earlier, I started talking about the bowl situation, and I don't know much about the bowl situation because it's such a screwy year. But Matt from Grand Rapids says, what are the Michigan State's odds for Michigan State to make a bowl game? He mentions that the slots are pretty limited this year with 3 Big Ten bowl games having already canceled, the Red Box Bowl, the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit, and the Pinstripe Bowl in New York. He says, I don't think any coach in America needs the extra bowl practices more than Mel Tucker. Probably not. I think Mel Tucker would love to have those practices. He says, any chance Michigan State misses a bowl, if they miss a bowl, could they petition for extra practices given the circumstances of the year? Man, this year, I don't say no to anything. So if they don't get a bowl game, could they ask for practices? Maybe, but would that go against what everybody's trying to do with limiting people from having more than 10 people in a room? I don't know. All right, Pinstripe Bowl canceled, Quick Lane Bowl canceled, Red Box Bowl canceled, Holiday Bowl canceled. I'm not sure if Holiday Bowl was still part of the Big Ten package or not. That Las Vegas Bowl was supposed to be, and I think it's been canceled. But in terms of Big Ten bowls, I looked it up a couple of days ago, and I think it's still, of course, you got the Outback Bowl, Citrus Bowl, and then you've got like the Playoff Bowl, whether it's Playoff or Rose Bowl. Those are the big 3. Then you've got the Nashville Bowl, which is the Music City Bowl. The bowl in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I don't know what Duke's Mayo is. I'm not a big mayonnaise guy. I see you've had some training, mayonnaise. How'd you get in here? Anyway, the Phoenix Bowl. It's called the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Okay, so those are the 5. So you figure Ohio State's going to be in one, whether it be the playoff or the Rose Bowl, whatever. And then you've got Tampa and Orlando. Let's just say Indiana and Iowa get into those 2. Let's say Wisconsin goes to the Phoenix Bowl or whatever. And Northwestern, that leaves like Charlotte or Phoenix or Nashville for Northwestern possibly. I don't know. Northwestern's already been to the Nashville Bowl, so I don't think they go to the Nashville Bowl. So let's say Northwestern goes to the Charlotte Bowl. Let's say Wisconsin goes to Phoenix. I don't know what the pecking order there is for Nashville, Charlotte, and Phoenix. I don't know what the payout is. I think it's about equal, and most of it just depends on who's been where most recently. So what Michigan State needs to do is they need to beat Penn State. Michigan State's 2-3. They've got 3 losses. There's a lot of teams in the Big Ten with 3 losses. Michigan State's 2-3. Minnesota's 2-3. Purdue's 2-3. Illinois' 2-3. Maryland is 2-2. Laughably, got Michigan at 1-4, Nebraska 1-4, Penn State 1-4. I mean, can Penn State win another game and then beat Michigan State and finish 3-4? And Penn State get into a bowl game if they beat? I think it might come down to Michigan State versus Penn State for a bowl game. If Michigan State loses to Ohio State, they're 2-4. If Michigan State beats Penn State, they're 3-4, and I think Michigan State is going to a bowl game. But if Penn State beats Michigan State, they're 3-4. If they win their other game, I think Penn State's going to a bowl game, winning their last 3 games. It's that kind of year, right? I'm looking up real quick to see who Penn State plays. They play Rutgers. So Penn State's going to beat Rutgers, I'm guessing. And then I think Penn State is 2-4, and I think Michigan State's 2-4, and they're playing for a bowl game. But like I say, you go 3-4 this year, it's the equivalent of going 7-5 in a regular type of situation because you didn't get to play Akron and Western and Youngstown State. You didn't get those 3 wins. So a 3-4 team this year in a 7-game Big Ten season is the same thing as losing 5 in a Big Ten season, going 4-5, finishing 7-5 overall. Michigan State 3-4, would they deserve a bowl game? I say yes. Penn State goes 3-4, do they deserve a bowl game? I say yes. You get a bowl game. You get a bowl game. You get a bowl game mayonnaise. So, like I've said earlier in the year, Mark D'Antonio in year number 1 had a good season. They beat Notre Dame. They went like 4-0 in the non-conference. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, almost beat Michigan. Beat Penn State, I think, a ranked Penn State team. Good team. Won another game against a ranked team, I think. They went 7-5. But in the Big Ten Conference, D'Antonio's first year, successful year, right? I think we all agree, successful year. 7-5. Went to the Champs Sports Bowl, lost to Boston College. Successful year. In Big Ten Conference play, D'Antonio's first year, they went 3-5. 3-5. Did they deserve a bowl game? Yes. So if Michigan State goes 3-4 in the Big Ten this year, do they not deserve a bowl game? Yes, that's actually a better record than D'Antonio had when he went 3-5. So I will accept no more arguments on that question. But first of all, Michigan State needs to beat Penn State. Now Purdue has to play Indiana. Indiana doesn't have Michael Penix anymore. All right, Minnesota, I don't know. I haven't looked at their schedules. But one of those teams is going to go to Nashville or maybe Phoenix. I don't know if it's going to be Purdue. If Purdue beats Indiana, it's to 3-3 possibly. Or Michigan State, Minnesota, I've not looked at their schedule. Maryland's 2-2. I'm not sure. Illinois, I don't know. One of those 5 teams can't stay. One of those teams is going to go 3-4. Or maybe it'll be Penn State. But if Michigan State beats Penn State, I think they will go to a bowl game, provided that the bowl games are still in business and they decide to go through with the bowl games. I'm just in this for-instance situation, I'm assuming that all those bowl games will be played. I think of Michigan State at 3-4, the victory over Penn State. If they're still having the bowl game in Nashville or Phoenix or Charlotte, I think Michigan State gets into one of those. Thanks for that question, Matt from Grand Rapids. All right. Okay. Jesse Adams from Mount Pleasant, Michigan says, if Ohio State and Michigan cannot play Saturday because of COVID, would the Big Ten let Maryland play Michigan State? Maryland and Michigan State play each other this weekend. Thanks for all the hard work, Jim. You know, a lot of people are asking about that, and I suspect those things have been talked about back in the back channels. It wouldn't surprise me. Michigan State and Maryland missed that game a couple of weeks ago. I think the Michigan State would be in favor of it. I suspect Maryland would be in favor of it. Maryland had their run of COVID. They apparently are through it. Michigan State's been fortunate enough to not have that situation. Yeah, I think you'd turn them loose, let them play. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. Tomorrow's Tuesday. We're still early in the week. I think there's a chance for that. And if Michigan State does play Ohio State, something I heard Rick Neuheisel talk about, I think would be a good one, is what if... the Wisconsin-Minnesota game, I think that might be the oldest rivalry in the Big Ten for the Paul Bunyan Axe. They did not play this year because of COVID. When you get to the crossover stage, if Michigan State's 3rd or 4th, I mean, do they really want to play Iowa again? The Big Ten doesn't really want to do match things up again, but it sounds like Iowa might finish ahead of Michigan State. I don't know. Play Purdue, I don't know. Indiana crossover and play, I don't know. What if Michigan State just goes ahead and plays Maryland? That game in the crossover weekend, just go ahead and play the Maryland game that you missed. Play that game. Meanwhile, open it up so that Minnesota can play Wisconsin for Paul Bunyan's Axe so they can play that game for the 700th consecutive year or whatever it is. It's like 120 straight years, whatever it is. You don't want to interrupt that thing. You don't want COVID to interrupt the Paul Bunyan's Axe trophy. So for crossover weekend, let them play themselves. Let Michigan State play Maryland. Unless they play Maryland this weekend. I don't know. Old Tuck says U of M wants to end their season. I thought Harbaugh wanted the youngsters to compete. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Hayden Fisher says, Mathis told the Detroit News today that Michigan State could be an option, but I'm just not sure, unquote. Well, I'm sure when you enter the portal, you're hoping for anything. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, Michigan State might be looking for a quarterback. I'm just saying that if he comes to Michigan State, I'm not sure he beats out Rocky Lombardi, okay? I'm not saying Rocky Lombardi's great. He played solid winning football on Saturday. I'm saying Deion Mathis, I don't know. He struggled as part of a very good. Did you see the first half of that game at the beginning of the year who did Georgia play? Arkansas? Good kid. I wish him the best, but people think transfer portal, get a quarterback. Why can't we just go out and get a Justin Fields? There's only one Justin Fields out there, and he went to Ohio State. The Newman kid from Wake Forest. Remember Michigan State beat Wake Forest in the bowl game last year? He was the best quarterback on the market. He went to Georgia, and then they recruited over his head, and he quit. But he wasn't that great. He was okay. And then in the winter, a lot of Michigan State fans were looking at that guy. What's his name? Anthony Brown from Boston College. Hey, there's a quarterback from Boston College with the portal. We should get him. I mean, he was okay at Boston College. Goes to Oregon, doesn't win the job. He entered the transfer portal as a starter, went to Oregon and didn't win the job. Transfer portal, sometimes there's guys like Jalen Hurts. Sometimes there's guys like Justin Fields. But, yeah, most of the time, the portal, those good established quarterbacks are not looking to go to a rebuilding program. If they're going to get in the portal, it's going to be like the guy at Wake Forest who's going to go to Georgia, try to win a national championship. Or Justin Fields is going to go to Ohio State, try to win a national championship. Tate Martell left Ohio State a couple years ago, went to Miami to become a starter, might have a chance to do something, didn't win the job. Most people in the portal are guys like Anthony Brown, Tate Martell. De'Aaron King was very good at Houston, went to Miami, made a difference. Yeah, if you can find a De'Aaron King out there, sure. There was only one De'Aaron King out there. There was De'Aaron King and Jamie Newman this past year in the portal. But people have this idea of this nameless, faceless quarterback that just exists, that nobody knows about, that Michigan State can just go get. Now, sometimes you can go. Now, can you go to the MAC level and get like the best MAC quarterback and bring him up? I've not even looked at that. I don't even know who. I know that I watched some of that Western Michigan, Central Michigan game, and that was just a track meet. Western Michigan, I think, leads the country in yards per play, but I can't even remember who their quarterback is. But I don't know. That'd be just too cruel to Western Michigan because you had Peyton Thorne when he was already committed there. All right, we're almost done here. We've been going for 2 hours. I want to look at these questions. I appreciate the people asking me questions over here. Let me go ahead and go through them. Paul the God says, I'm a way bigger MSU fan than all of you, I promise. Trust me, Paul the God says. All right. Envious Gaming says, do you think Rocket Watts is a 4-year guy? No, I don't. I think that he doesn't think he's a 4-year guy. I think he might be a 4-year guy, but I don't think he thinks he's a 4-year guy, and that's the important thing. Paul the God 3 says, Malik Hall and Julius Marble are very underrated for sure. Malik Hall's headed that way. Marble, I like his disposition. He's got some physicality. He's ahead of Matty Sissoko in the playing group right now, and he's solid, but Matty Sissoko's got a lot of horsepower, and he's got a high ceiling. Paul the God has spoken, and he says by the end of the season, Gabe Brown will be the best sixth man in college basketball easily. Paul the God has spoken. Actually, he's Paul the God 3. I don't know where Paul the God 1 and Paul the God 2 are, but Paul the God 3 is with us, and that's what he says, and I'm not going to argue with him. Detroit Spartan says, you would know, God. Paul the God says, of course I would. Detroit Spartan says, if we beat Ohio State, will Rocky Lombardi at quarterback? I'll host a SpartanMag party at Comp's house, full bar on me. He says, if Michigan State beats Ohio State with Rocky Lombardi at quarterback, SpartanMag party, full bar on Detroit Spartan at my house. All right, when can we do that? We'll have to wait for COVID to lift, have to wait for vaccines, have to wait for our turn. I'm thinking right around the time of the green-white game. We might have to make that happen. I'd want Detroit Spartan to pay for the full bar and a carpet cleaning. I have a feeling that Ragnar Daniscold is the guy from Florence, Alabama that called earlier. And he's talking about SEC better than the Big Ten, like anyone. Yeah, great. I hope that makes your life better. Better than Big Ten in what? In football? That's about it. Swimming, probably. Gymnastics. Hayden Fisher says, Harbs ruining someone, no way. I don't know what that means. Didn't you hear Harbs is a great guy? He never got ran out of San Francisco. He's a great guy. The folks in Ann Arbor love him too. Brad Fashenko saying Michigan State's 4th in the country in living alumni. All right, I'm going to zip through these things. Brad Fashenko. I forgot about that. Brad Fashenko. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for the sponsorship. Really appreciate it. I can't remember if we did that one or not. Really appreciate the personal sponsorship, as I do all the sponsorships. Thanks a lot, guys. From the bottom of my SpartanMag.com heart. Get through some of these, and then we'll sign off. Mr. Boneman says, I need more from Gabe Brown. Gabe Brown, he lets it fly. He's not shy. He's good. He's playing good defense. He's got energy. I mean, he's a plus. He's an asset. Hayden Fisher says, I agree. I'd like to see him put him on the floor more rather than just camp around the three-point line. That's true. I'd like to see him. Yeah, he gets it and lets it fly. I mean, shot fake, 2 dribbles, 16 feet, pull up. That'd be nice for him to add that to his game. I've not seen him do that a whole lot. I'm not sure that he. I've never seen him do that. I mean, I don't even know if he can or if it's good or bad or whatever. All right, Matt McLeod says, where has Ricky White been? He's been injured. And, man, he had that great game against Michigan and played a little bit against Iowa, but we've not seen him. So Trenton Gillison was injured, Jordan Simmons injured, Ricky White injured. So Michigan State had so much work to do after the Indiana game and, of course, the unsightly Iowa loss. And Tucker was very insistent and very, what's the word he uses? Intentional about practice, about the things they needed to get done, put the pads on Tuesdays and Wednesdays both weeks. They went at it, inside period, physical. And like Tucker said, it started to sound like a good physical team in practice. The pads started sounding different. Now, he said on the radio show they weren't necessarily going all the way to the ground on those drills. But if you have guys hitting like that, and we said that Jaden Reed improved with his blocking, how do you work that? You got to work at live drills, contact drills, physical drills. This team needed it. They went after it. They had some physical practices. When you have physical practices, sometimes you're going to get guys hurt. I don't know. I mean, sometimes guys get hurt and nobody's even near them. I was there when Mark Renaud blew out his ACL at practice and nobody was near him. That happens too. I'm not saying these injuries happen because of contact, but they needed to have contact because he was still taking inventory of his team, his personnel, what they could do, couldn't do, what they were willing to do. He's still taking the temperature on everything. So, you saw what the offensive line looked like against Rutgers, and you saw what it looked like against Northwestern. The only way you can improve upon that is to get on the field and work it. So in the meantime, Gillison goes down, Ricky White goes down, Jordan Simmons goes down. You practicing hard, expecting that can happen. And like he says, if you're on the field, you're a starter. Tyler Hunt was on the field. He was a starter. And he played like one. He was good. Credit to him. Might not have been able to win that game without him because there's a steep drop-off after him. Now, Ian Stewart, the wide receiver, moved to tight end, worked out with the tight ends during warm-up. I think. I saw him out there. But anyway, we've not seen him play tight end yet. Haven't seen Parks Kissinger at all. I don't know what his future is going to be. He was Scout Team Player of the Week a couple of weeks ago. It's not looking good. If you have all these injuries at tight end and you're not getting on the field now, Tommy Guardo, not sure what's going on there either. Comp is old. Hayden Vischer says, Duke will shoot 10 3-pointers in the first half tomorrow night. Book it. I was thinking 20, Mr. Boneman says. Brad Fishenko, Super Chat Comp, thanks. Finally got to that. Matthew Bobe says, have you covered any MSU hockey? Yes. Yeah, I covered last weekend, 2 weekends ago, that series with Arizona State over at SpartanMag.com. Those stories I put up for free with some analysis in there. Watched those closely. These 2 games this past weekend against Ohio State, Michigan State won on Saturday in overtime. Nicholas Mueller, the U with the 2 dots over it, from Switzerland, with a game winner in Columbus in overtime. Came back the next day. Michigan State lost 4-2. They were down 3-2, gave up an empty netter late. I didn't get a chance to watch either one of those games, but I've got Big Ten Plus, and I want to go back and zip through those games. Because we covered the game Saturday, and the basketball game was up till about 6 in the morning writing some stuff. And then Sunday, after sleep, after going to bed at 6, rolled out of bed around noon, went and got a Christmas tree, came back, took another nap on the couch, and then I watched the Michigan State Notre Dame basketball game from Saturday because I didn't get a chance to watch that live on Saturday. Paul Conradine covered it for us at SpartanMag.com. While that game was going on, I was writing my Michigan State football stories and putting up video and those type of things. So Sunday I was catching up on Michigan State Notre Dame, and then I was looking for Duke, Coppin State. I only found a condensed version. And then I went to bed because by that time it was kind of late. I probably killed a little bit of time, dinner or something. But I did not get a chance to watch those hockey games. I want to go back and watch them, see what was going on. Split at Ohio State. Ohio State was ranked number 10 in the country. That's not a bad split. Michigan State this week plays Minnesota at home for a pair, I think Thursday and Friday. And I like the way Big Ten hockey is playing games on Thursdays and Fridays to stay away from football Saturdays. That's smart. That's good. Good branding on their part. Also, right now, there's not a lot of hockey going on anywhere on the continent other than college hockey. So college hockey right now has a chance to gain some more eyeballs. Those people that are real hockey people don't have any hockey to watch, flipping through. Maybe it'll be on the NHL network, maybe Fox Sports Detroit, maybe Big Ten Network, maybe even TSN up in Canada. I don't know if they're picking up games or not, but it's a good opportunity for Big Ten hockey. The only thing you're lacking, of course, is the crowd, and you really miss the crowd for those hockey games. And the bands, too. But the product is good. Michigan State's looking good. They got more depth this year. The fourth line scored again on Sunday. Matson, the center from Minnesota, junior, tall kid, drafted by the Flames when he was 16 years old, and he's been slow to, grow into that frame. But this year he's got 2 goals. So Matson, tall kid, maybe he's starting to come around. All right, let's see here. Mr. Boneman, almost 2 hours, and he's only answered 1 question. That's the way I am. That's what happens sometimes. Detroit Spartan says, you can learn more from comp rambling, in my opinion. Frashenko says, I enjoy the technique analysis. Well, I'm glad somebody does, because sometimes I just feel like I'm just over-caffeinated, and nobody's listening. Hayden Vischer says, Mosley had a key block on one of Rocky's scrambles. He did. I think I might have made a note of that one. For the particulars. I hate that they made these screens smaller on the MacBook Pro. That's not a paid endorsement. I can't find it. Here it is. Trey Mosley played 51 snaps. He was targeted 3 times, caught 1 pass. I've got, Mosley did that. I don't have notes on that one, but on the first play, when it was first down and 20, at Michigan State's 20-yard line, Hayward, gain of 8 yards. Mosley got a piece of the safety, which allowed Hayward to get 5 more yards. It was an 8-yard gain. It would have been a 3-yard gain if the wide receiver missed the block right there. But he got the block on a safety. Safety's a moving target. And wide receiver blocking was better in this game. What was bad, or what wasn't as good? Rocky Lombardi struggled with some of those short passes to the flat. I mentioned in the pre-snap read that Northwestern is usually soft along the sidelines. Nebraska, Wisconsin got things going to the flat a little bit. And I wrote that it's hard to get much going against them on defense, but that's one area you might get 5 yards here and there. Michigan State tried to do it on third down a couple times, but it was tightened up on them. Northwestern had done a good job tightening those things up. First drive, 3rd and 8. Back shoulder, maybe didn't leave it out far enough wide, but it was Naylor, I think, against Newsome. Newsome's their best corner. I mentioned on Twitter during the game, I'm like, Michigan State shouldn't be going after number 2. If you had your druthers, go against Cameron Ruiz, number 18. I mentioned that in pre-snap read also. And I mentioned that Michigan State, on the things to do list in the pre-snap read, go deep against number 18, and they did. And I could tell a lot of you guys did not read the pre-snap read, because usually if I'm right about something in the pre-snap read, someone gives me a pat on the back of the message board, and nobody did. That's when I can realize nobody's reading the stuff. But I said, there's a big difference between number 2 and number 18. Was he 18 or 16? 16, Ruiz. There's a big difference between 2 and 16. Find 16, get a favorable matchup, deep, touchdown, 7-0. Now, I don't know if they tried. They tried to go deep against him one other time with Montori Foster, picked up a holding penalty, and that was good. But could they have done it more often? I don't know. But we called that one, and we also called the quarterback draw. In the things to do list, we mentioned that Nebraska hit Northwestern with the quarterback draw, and Michigan State waited till a key third down situation, I think on their third scoring drive. Quarterback draw, picked it up 11 yards, sprinkled it in from that point forward. Northwestern got somewhat wise to it, but the quarterback draw helped Michigan State win that game. And we said in the pre-snap read, watch for the quarterback draw. Michigan State's not been a big quarterback draw team, but if you read the pre-snap read and you saw it happen in the game, you know where you read it. Also, one other thing, I with the offensive lineman for the other team, most of the time I don't have much of an opinion on offensive linemen, but I noticed that the right tackle is kind of a waist bender. He bends at his waist, gets off balance, kind of gets beat. Northwestern looked like a top 10 team in some ways against Wisconsin, but in a couple positions they looked like Northwestern. The right tackle's a waist bender, not very good. He's the one guy I had notes on. I said he's a waist bender. But I didn't think Michigan State would have anybody to really take advantage of it. However, twice, the end of the first half, remember Drew Beasley, sack, when Northwestern's threatening at midfield? It was the right tackle, it was the waist bender. He got beat, Drew Beasley, sack. Big play, subtle big play of the game. Northwestern's opening drive. 2nd down and 1 at the Michigan State 18-yard line. It's a 0-0 game. Northwestern caused Michigan State to go 3 and out. Michigan State's driving. 2nd and 1 of the 18. Big play. Big play. Outside zone. Michael Fletcher from Flint Carmen Ainsworth High School, having a nice redshirt freshman season at defensive end. One gapping into the B gap. Crosses the face of the waist bender. Beats that right tackle, the waist bender, and Fletcher crosses his face, and the waist bender falls forward. Kind of like George Foreman in Kinshasa, Zaire, 1974. Just kind of bends forward, goes down. He beat the waist bender, Fletcher. Beat the waist bender, gets upfield, sets the edge, builds a wall, as Tucker says, forces him back inside on an outside zone play. And Naquan Jones gets the tackle for loss. 2nd and 1. It's a 0-0 game. Michigan State 3 and out. Northwestern driving. 2nd and 1 in the red zone. Michael Fletcher. Subtle big play of the game. Tackle for loss. 3rd and 2. Now it's 3rd and 2. Jalen Hunt, defensive tackle. Now he's solid against a double team. And because Hunt was solid against the double team, he was taking on left guard, left tackle, solid against it. The left tackle didn't quite get Jalen Hunt done, so the left tackle didn't quite get off to the linebacker level, did not quite get all of Simmons. Antoine Simmons coming in, gets a little bit of the left tackle, and Simmons is able to shed that and make the tackle for a gain of 1. So it was 3rd and 2, they gained 1. They would have gained more, but Simmons got there in time because Jalen Hunt took on that double team. So you have Fletcher and Simmons doing the job up front. Northwestern goes for it on 4th and 1. This time, Michigan State, short yardage defense, they don't two gap and they don't slant one gap. This time they kind of did like a submarine. Naquan Jones, Jalen Hunt. They kind of dive down, submarine, take out those guys with the legs, took them down so that Simmons can come in, tackle for loss, 4th down stoppage. Big series. Michigan State gets it back. Running play, deep, touchdown. Huge turning point there for Michael Fletcher. Once you know the rest of the story that Michigan State won the game, you go back and you look at that play, you're like, man, that's a huge play early in the game. That's why football's so great. A play early in the game like that can have a big impact on the game. And I love basketball, but that's something basketball doesn't really have, especially in the NBA, in terms of like a play in the early going having any impact on anything. So that's the name of that tune. Let's go through these chat questions a little bit more. I appreciate everybody tuning in and having a wonderful time here at SpartanMag Live. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Mr. Bowman says, where is Ovid Elsie? Detroit Spartan says, just north of Lansing, I think. Yeah, it is. Just east of St. John's, Hayden Vischer. We got some geography majors. Can you be a geography major? I don't think so. Cartero 917 says, off topic, but any new news on Imani Bates' potential reclassification? I've not heard anything in that front yet. Detroit Spartan says, time for a new bell comp. Yeah. I bought this at the place where we got our tree. I saw it. I'm like, I need a bell. Got it. Doors fan says, did you miss the Brad Fashenko donation? Yes, I did. Detroit Spartan, thank you for the new bell. Thanks, man. And a horn. All right, got both from Detroit Spartan. Appreciate that. Better get an air horn. Yeah, that'd be good if I did get an air horn up here, but I don't know. Neighbors might not like it. The kids wake them up. It'd be a problem. He did hear it. Okay, we did hear it. Now we're getting the back of the getting the information on the air horn. Derek Hurst says, are there any linebackers we could see Coach Tucker adding to this first class? Man, that is, they're obviously interested in linebackers. They showed interest in Chief Borders, who was earlier committed to Florida, did not get him. Doesn't look like they're going to get Bryce Steele, who was originally committed to South Carolina. Michigan State's still working on the kid from Detroit King, committed to Penn State. So they're obviously in the market for a linebacker, but things are kind of quiet there still. I don't know if that one's going to go all the way to February, but Michigan State is interested. Now, after December, after signing date, the early signing date, 2/3 of them are going to be off the market. Could they get into more of the fall film and find somebody that way? I'm not sure. Good question. Penn State's 1-5. Thank you. What was I saying? 1-4? See, I'll screw up like that if you're not careful. That's kind of a big difference. They go 3-5. I don't think 3-5 Penn State gets a bowl game. I don't know. Don't forget about championship week. Okay, yeah. So Penn State on a crossover and wins a crossover game, ends up 4-5. Then Penn State would get a bowl game. All right, I'm still reading here. We're about done. Patrick Beatty, also known as MSU Pat, says, sorry, late. Do you think this could be Izzo's best defensive team in a while? That's come up a few times. In the perimeter, yes. Yes, because they got length and experience and strength. Aaron Henry's strong. Don't forget about his strength. He's got man strength. He's gotten bigger. Big legs, quick first step with the ball. Joshua Langford's got to stay healthy, but he's got a lot of know-how also as this season goes. They get into the film study, and they start feeling more and more like a team that's just going to get better. Rocket Watts has the potential to be a very good point guard defensively. Gabe Brown, playing limited minutes, can burn a lot of energy on defense. All that stuff is good. Marcus Bingham coming around nicely as a defender. We're going to learn more about Joey Hauser as a defender, going against Jalen Johnson of Duke Tuesday night. And if he passes that test, Malik Hall comes in and does a good job like they expect. If Michigan State gets good defense at the 4 position, then, yeah, the defense could be excellent. And it's a good defensive team with athletes, long athletes, so that defense can turn into transition offense, can turn into bad shots, rebound, and go. And that can just build on each other. Could be fun. Mr. Bowman says, when is the Coach Tucker radio show on? I think it's on Thursdays. It was Tuesday last week, because of Thanksgiving. Brad Fashenko says, love the players from Flint. Bjorn Charlie says, I like how the kid on the Northwestern offensive line's name was just Wastebender. Yeah, I forget his name. I can look it up, but I don't know. Matthew Bobe says, do you believe Audric Estime is underrated in his class? Well, I mean, he's a top 200 and he's a 4-star, so he's rated pretty high. I think that's about right. And that's going to do it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in and filing in and being kind to your neighbors and tipping your bartenders and waitresses. Appreciate you guys being here. Go to SpartanMag.com. Become a subscriber. You'll get a pat on the back. SpartanMag.com. Subscribe right now. And it expires on Tuesday, the deal that we have. If you subscribe right now, 25% off, $75 for only a year subscription, $75, and you get a $75 gift card at Nike.com for Nike, all your favorite Nike apparel. You get a $75 gift card, $75 coupon card. So pay $75, you get $75 back. You get to be a subscriber for free, basically. Try it out, SpartanMag.com. We'll see you over there at the Underground Bunker. My name is Jim Comparoni. Thanks to everybody who called in and asked questions and behaved yourselves. Appreciate that. The guy from Alabama, I'm glad I didn't answer the phone. Everybody else, take care. Everybody have a great day. Enjoy the Michigan State Duke game. Have a great week. Hope you had a great